Hi, and welcome back to Beyond the Monsters. Today I have Laura here with us. All right, Laura, start wherever you want.
Oh my God. I don't even know where I would start, but hi.
Hi.
Thank you for having
Of
me.
course.
Yeah, well, I'm here because I sent you a little thing and asked to be here, and I am a domestic violence survivor. Um, and I've shared my story a little bit before, but I didn't really get any kind of overall sense of justice as far as what I could feel,
Okay.
or what I was expecting when I started on the process of reporting everything. So,
Mm-hmm.
like on the one hand, part of me wants to just be done with it and like never think about it ever again.
Yeah,
And I also simultaneously realize that's not possible.
right.
And then on the other hand, I still feel like because, and I'll talk about it later, I never got the trial that was supposed to happen. And I felt like I never got to really like unload anything in a way that was constructive. Like it always felt punitive in some way until I shared my story in like a really short video for a fundraising event for DV survivors. And I don't know. I'm grateful to be here, and then it's also just overwhelming.
I'm sure.
But
Why don't you start with tell us your story,
Yeah.
as
Um
far as what you went through.
Absolutely. Well, I didn't date a lot of people. My
Mm.
parents had this idea that if they just kept us from dating people, then we would just meet like one person and be like, there we go, we found them and now we're
That's
gonna
your
get married.
forever person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and which
yeah.
is such a horrible thing to teach. Sorry. Don't teach kids that. Instead, teach them how to date empoweredly and intelligently and with awareness and make yourself a safe space to come to them when you have troubles, you know?
So important.
Um, and yeah, so I was dating the person that ended up trying to kill me, and we moved into a house together.
How old were you?
Um, that would have been earlier 30s. I'm 38 now.
Okay.
Um, and then it was one of those things where I was having trouble discerning whether the hesitations and the worries I was having shortly after moving in, if that was just me just being like overly cautious or hyper vigilant, or if it was like, a parent's voice in my head telling me things were going to go wrong, or if I was really seeing things that were concerning kind of like as soon as we signed a lease and ended up in the same house together.
Mm.
Um, but long story short, after living together for less than a year, I had gone through so many different events with this human that I was literally, in a counseling session once, I said to our counselor like, "Hey, I am seeing every single checkbox. If you were to list off everything that would be an indicator for domestic violence, I'm experiencing that in this relationship, short of being physically attacked." And um it was it's really hard to be like in your own body and know what you know and have that knowledge, because I had like studied that in undergrad and talked to people about it, and I was a health advocate in undergrad, and my minor was in medical humanities as well. And I had studied DV also because someone very close to me was affected by it too, and I had helped her recover from it. And it was like I knew what I was seeing, and then I was saying to myself like, no, but like this person couldn't possibly be doing that. Like, or like I am not the person that would be a DV, like this can't possibly be my life. Like,
Like, I know better.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, like
yeah.
I know better, and then also like I'm not a statistic, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me of, this is probably a terrible comparison, but in high school when they're trying to teach you how to like not ever get pregnant. Sorry for this
Yeah.
metaphor. And they're like you watch this video, or we did in the state I'm from, where it was like, it'll never happen to me. I don't have to use protection. And it's like 9 months later you have a kid. And it's like that like denial.
Yes.
Sorry that that's where that metaphor went, but I was like, no, like this isn't my life. This can't possibly be
Right.
me. I was raised with, like awareness and understanding, and, I was
Yeah.
told I was going to meet somebody that was going to love me and marry me and we'd be together forever.
Right.
And anyway, long story short, after like escalating and escalating and escalating, and like particularly series of events where I was just like, okay, this isn't a healthy relationship, but I still wouldn't have called it domestic violence.
Hmm.
Um,
What kind of like what kind of things were happening? Like what kind of red flags were you seeing?
yeah, in no particular order, getting mad and like breaking things in front of me. Like there was one point where he wanted me to go on a boat with his friends, and I was scared of one of the friends in particular and just felt really unsafe around them. And also, like, I grew up on the water summers, and I have very particular needs as far as water safety because I'm a drowning survivor.
Oh
And
wow.
I didn't want to go on a boat with a bunch of dudes that were gonna, first of all, I didn't feel safe with already, and then also we're gonna be drinking a bunch
Right.
and like cooking these big tomahawk steaks. And no offense to people that eat tomahawk
Yeah.
steaks, but it was just very like broy, and I didn't
Yeah.
want to be there. And also, I'd been like so objectified in that relationship already that I didn't want to be like I felt like if I was there as like this woman in a bikini, he was gonna do the thing where he's like, look how hot my girl is, which it's disgusting. And yet like some part of me clearly was flattered by that, which also
Sure.
just ugh. um but I said no. I was like, you know what, you should go have fun with your guys. I would like to stay here. And he picked up this like entire case of like Costco water bottles and like smashed them on the floor in front of me and was yelling at me for not going. um
Where you
so
would think he might be understanding if he knew your history,
Right. And I
and
even told
your
him, I was like, these are the things I have hesitance about. I also like, you're one dude in particular. I know that you're friends with him. I know you want to keep that friendship going. I That's interesting to me, but like if that's really an important friendship, go do that. Just
yeah.
please don't make me be part of it, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And then like I found out later, I thought he had stolen the passcode to my phone because he would occasionally say things where I was thinking to myself like, I've never said that to you, but I do know that's in a message to someone. And that's fascinating that you're saying that, because I have a really good memory. Like I remember piano pieces I played in first grade, and that was
Yeah.
however, what, 32 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember I have a photographic memory, so like I know what the messages look like. And I was like, the only way that you would be saying that right now is if you read that message. And it's not about anything that I
Were you saying
care
that to
that,
yourself, or were
yeah,
you?
oh yeah, no,
Yeah. Oh,
I
you
didn't
didn't
want to
confront
call
him.
him out, yeah.
Okay.
And I wasn't doing that actively. Like in hindsight, I realized that I was very careful to try to
Hmm.
not anger him. But
Right.
at the time, I wasn't conscious that I was doing it.
Yeah.
But now looking back on the relationship, I pretty much was trying to make sure I didn't make him angry. And even saying that, like, I didn't make him angry, like, I hear that and I think to myself, like, I was never responsible for his actions.
Right.
But there's a part of me that still thinks that. And that's like the part that I work on in counseling
Sure.
is releasing that feeling that, like, I somehow caused it,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is a common thing that, the more people I talk to that have been through it, we all kind of phrase things very similarly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if I spent time, like I went to dinner with one of my girlfriends and we had dinner and then went and watched like Hamilton on Disney Plus or something at our
Mm-hmm.
house. And then after she left, he was like, did you sleep with her? And I was like, I don't think so. I think we just had dinner and watched a movie. That's one
Yeah.
of my best friends. And I was like,
Right.
did I sleep with her? No, I don't
Right.
think, I don't know. Let me like, it's just,
Yeah.
I was like, are you being serious right now? Like,
Right.
no.
Like you would have totally thought he was kidding.
Right. And then he's like,
Yeah.
well, did you sleep with somebody else while you were out? And I was like, at dinner in public? No. But like, I'm saying that now like it's sarcastic. At the time, I was like, whoa, like, did I do something wrong to make him
Right.
think that I was, and he was like, well, you got all dressed up and like, you looked really pretty and blah, blah, blah. And
And
like,
then you have to start the tiptoeing.
right.
And
Yes. And
yeah.
then like, I felt ashamed for investing time and like care into myself. And things like that. And then a guy that I've been dating off and on, it was like a casual hookup situation that I
Mm-hmm.
had going on for like years before I was like formally dating the guy that tried to kill me. He was extremely jealous of this other guy, and I was like, I'm not seeing him. I ended things with him,
Yeah.
and he was like, well, when did you end things with him? And what day do you think you and I started dating? And, are you, and like we had this like 3-hour fight one time about what our anniversary day was. And I was like, to be honest, you never officially like asked me to date you. You just assumed we were dating.
Right.
And okay, but like dating involves dating. You date lots of people. So like I wasn't beholden to you until we started officially dating, and I
Right.
don't even know when that was. So pick a day, let's go with it, you know?
Yeah.
And that was like not the answer he wanted. And he
Should
called
have
me
just
a,
been simple. Let's pick a
right.
date, and that's what it is.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, I was like, just pick a day. And he was like, no, I need to know what day you think we started dating. And that was one of those things where, like, in hindsight, I looked back and I had been, like, messaging my friend, like, oh, you know, like, I met up with this guy. We were hanging out. We hooked up a little bit, but, like, it didn't really, like, I was like, I don't really think I want to do this anymore. I think I'd like to invest my time in, you know, the guy that, this guy.
yeah.
And he later told me, like, much later after I broke up with him for the first time, he told me that he had read those messages and he was like, that's why I wanted to know what day we were dating. So I knew that you fucked around on me. Or, sorry, can I say that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I was like, we weren't a couple. We weren't monogamous. We weren't any of those things. We hadn't talked about it. We, you know, like
Right.
if you had been seeing other people at that time, I would have understood that was part of dating.
Yeah.
So that, and then
And at this point, you guys are living together, right?
yes, that was
So,
like a fight that we had shortly after moving in. I say we had, I didn't ask for that fight. So a fight he started shortly after, and I was trying to go to bed that night, and he had been
yeah.
like trying to like put the moves on me, and I was like, you haven't talked to me all day, you haven't interacted with me. I'm not just like open for business whenever you want me. Like you have to invest in me as a person
Right.
for me to be ready to be connected to you physically. Like please
Sure.
help me feel emotionally comfortable, and that's what. You know, from there is when he was like, well, what day do you think we started dating? And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like, what?
Yeah.
Did you want to like say something sweet first? You know, like,
Right. Right. It's like he just
he,
wanted to start shit.
right, yeah. And that was definitely a pattern of like him thinking he was just entitled to my body at all times, and then if I wasn't ready, it would cause a whole fight, and he would say that I had been sleeping with someone else, and like if you're not wanting to have sex with me, clearly you must be having sex with other people, and like who are they? You know, tell me their names. There was one time I cleaned the room because we got a kitten, or I got a kitten, by accident. Cat distribution system dropped a cat near my house that was covered in fleas and needed some help. And I was like, I'll keep this cat till we find the owner. And
Yeah.
to this day, I still have this cat. But, you know, like the cat had tapeworms because the cat had fleas. And so after cleaning everything, I apparently didn't put a picture frame back in the exact right spot. And he came in and he was like, that photo frame is moved. You had someone in here, you were fucking them. And I was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I moved it because I
Super
cleaned.
insecure.
Right.
Wow.
And then he would make jokes about cheating on me all the time. And I was like, I don't think that's very funny. You know, like he would go on a trip and he was like, oh, you know, it doesn't count if it's in a different area code or zip code or whatever the hell. And I was like, I brought that up in counseling with our couples counselor. And I was
Right.
like, these aren't jokes to me. Like, I think that he is really doing this.
Do you think he really was?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. He also didn't
That's why he was so
disclose.
paranoid about you.
Correct. Yeah. Which is ironic because I'm loyal as all hell.
Yeah.
You know, like if I agree to be in a
course.
monogamous relationship, then I'm going to honor that
Yeah.
because I have trauma around people not doing what they say they're going to do. So if I say I'm going to do something, like I make it happen,
Right.
you know?
Your word is your word.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 And then there was a lot of like accusations of cheating. Like there was one time where there was this big event in the city we're in where there were a lot of like martial artists gathering, and we're both martial artists, and like someone that I had wanted to meet for a long time was there, and I was so excited to meet this person, and like we had the means to meet this person. And I'm being vague on purpose, I'm sorry, but
No, it's okay.
me saying like, oh my god, I can't believe they're here, I can't wait to go and meet
Yeah.
them, spiraled this entire thing of being like, oh, you just want to go and suck his whatever, and like, you know, this must be. And I was like, like
It's like exhausting.
it's exhausting.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like that night I ended up like I wouldn't get in a car with him. He was like yelling at me and like made a scene in a like public forum in front of people that we didn't know, but like was yelling at me and cursing. And I was like, you're reminding me of a guy I dated a long time ago who like I promised myself I'd never date someone like that again.
Right.
And I was like, I can't believe I'm seeing what I'm seeing. And he was like, just get in the car. And I was like, oh, absolutely not. I was like, I've walked I've walked for days before, like hiking. I was like, I
Yeah.
will walk my ass home. That is totally fine. Like, I'll
Right.
figure it out. And I
Yeah.
did. I started walking. I was like, no, get away from me. And I did break up with him shortly after that because in addition to all of that, there was one night where he just like kept trying to sleep with me and I wasn't ready. And I said no like 4 times and he wouldn't get off of me. And it triggered me so badly because I'm also a rape survivor from college.
Okay.
And it took me 10 years to even like speak up about that when it happened. And I
He
filed a
knew
police
about
report.
this?
He knew, absolutely. We were friends before we dated, and I had known him for
Okay.
years through martial arts. And I was very vocal about being a rape survivor after I finally got to the point where I addressed it, reported it, I wrote like an 18-page handwritten statement about that. And the police officer came up from a different city to like be there for me because
Yeah.
she knew some of my family and wanted to like be supportive. Um, and after that, it was like when I finally got to where I could speak about it, it was like I was like, "Oh my God, it's what a relief." Like I realized it wasn't my fault.
Right.
And having other people weigh in on it who weren't like family, but and say like, "Hey, this was a really tough thing that happened to you."
Right.
And like,
And
thank you
we
for
carry
sharing.
shame,
Yeah.
so much
Oh,
shame,
so
and
much.
now
Yeah.
you're finally
Yeah.
saying it out
So
loud.
exactly. And so like I ran away from him that night and like turned the bedroom light on and I was like, "Hey, I said no. Like why were you still touching me? Why are you still trying to get on top of me?" And he was like, "What are you talking about?" And I ended up sleeping on the couch that night and I like wouldn't get back in the bed and he was
Right.
offended. And there was no like understanding, kindness. "I'm so sorry. Clearly you're bothered.
Right.
I don't know what's going on, but I'm so like I can see you're hurt, you know?"
Yeah. Like I didn't mean
Um,
it. I didn't mean it to offend
Right.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
Something.
yeah, so I broke up with him and got my crap out of his apartment and went back to my apartment and was like, "We're done. I'm not going to see you anymore."
Right.
And I stuck with it for like a short while and talked to some close friends about it and they were like, "Yeah, you made a good choice." And then he circled back with like, "Hey, I really didn't understand. I have studied this. I've looked at," and like he said like all these things that felt very validating in a similar way to how it felt when I reported it. And I
Yes.
was thinking to myself like, "Wow, he really didn't know and he took the time to read about it and to be supportive. Like that means a lot, you
He
know?"
really does care about
Right.
me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I was like, "Okay, let's tentatively try this again because I care about you a lot. There are so many great things."
Right.
And looking back on it, I'm like, the great things were that I was like at his house all the time, cooking breakfast for him, like making his coffee, getting his shit ready for him so he could go because he was like on this like weight loss journey to get cut and ripped and whatever. And like, I study a lot about nutrition and I love like plant medicine. I studied that and um, like learning how to make super nutritious meals and have all the like adaptogens and like
Right.
gut healthy things like
Yeah.
that's one of my passions.
Right.
And so in hindsight I'm like, no, he was just glad that I made his life
He loved.
comfortable
Yes. Yes.
and he was willing to do whatever it took to get that comfy life back. But at the time I was like, wow, he really appreciates
Mm.
me. I get to go back to making his breakfast and his
Right.
smoothies every morning, which I was
Yeah.
doing. And I thought that was like this like dutiful, amazing girlfriend thing to do,
Yeah.
which now like I feel nauseous right now saying that. And like, sorry to my current partner because I do not make breakfast for my partner. I'm sorry, baby. But like that's more balanced there. But
Yeah.
I was like, and I also was like playing out this like fantasy of what I was taught relationships were supposed to look like.
Right.
I had so much like religious influence as far as what relationships were supposed to look like. I had a lot of family trauma, and that is an understatement. When I say a lot, it's like whatever word is bigger than that and bigger and bigger and bigger. Like I've had to map out my family in counseling, and like mapping that out was very eye opening. And it's a
Wow.
lot of women that just like carry the burden for men in my family and are just like the emotional and physical caregivers and just like hold all the things in.
Right.
And I looked at like, especially at my mother and my grandmother, and realized that like I was repeating those patterns and that
Okay.
like I was martyring myself in this idea of like how much I could take, like how much can I hold? How much can I give? How much can I put myself last? And that means that I am
Yeah.
being loving. And then if someone allows me to do that for them, they love me too. And it's such a traumatic way to look at love, and it's not even love, you
Right.
know?
Right.
It's just overextending yourself.
Yeah. It's a little
um
twisted. Yeah.
yeah, and anyway, it's just I'm I didn't think of it at the time. At the time, I thought I was being forgiving and kind because I think of myself as being like too harsh. And, you know, like if I make a decision and I want to stick with it, there's this voice that tells me to like, oh, go back and reevaluate. And
Mm-hmm.
so you know, like I kept him at arm's length for a little bit and then we went back to dating. And you know, I went back to making his breakfast and his smoothies every morning and being there when he got home from work. I'm a bartender, so I work at night, and he
Okay.
was working during the day. And so on the days that I was off, and I also was like taking a lot of time off from the sport that I was supposed to be training, and I was just like spending time at his house or, you know, going to my house to get ready to come back to his house to have
Okay.
food ready to like be, you know, like this like 1950s housewife. No
Right.
offense to 1950s housewives. And literally, honestly, like I also want to say there's like no offense to anyone who really does that and loves it and is fulfilled by it because
Right.
I don't think that women have to fit in any box they want to. Like whatever feels genuine and authentic as long as it's not abusive, like do that. There's
Right.
nothing
Right.
wrong with
And it's a lot of hard work.
yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God, it's a
Yeah.
lot. And I just want to make sure I say that right now because I'm like,
Right.
you know, in a different situation that could have been very beautiful,
Of course.
just not in this one.
Right.
So, and I really like cooking for people. So there's
Right.
that.
Right.
Um, but
He
I've
just
all,
didn't have the good intentions that should have
right.
came
Yeah.
with it all.
It was like I was giving and giving and giving and giving, and he was taking and taking. And when I look back on it, I think to myself, like, what actually was I getting out of it? And I don't know. Like,
Right.
I think I was just like, you know, at the time I wouldn't have had the words for it, but now I'm like, oh, I just felt like I was chosen. And that was so like, that's such an honor. Like, oh, somebody wants to date me. That means that
Right.
like something's okay with me because I have a lot of like built up trauma surrounding like not being special, not being important, not mattering. Like,
Maybe not being chosen
yeah.
too and
And like
stuff.
I
Yeah.
introduce myself to people multiple times because I always assume they don't remember who I am. And then it usually backfires because they're like, yeah, I know who you are. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I did it because I think I'm
Yeah.
not important, not because I think you have a bad memory or whatever.
Right.
Um, so yeah, but it's just the like not enough wound and that being someone's girlfriend somehow was like a soothing balm for that wound.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also because I had come from this family where it was like, you don't get to date till you're married. That was literally a phrase that was said to me, which now I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. But at the time I was like, oh, I can't wait to go on dates with the husband I marry, which,
Right.
oh my gosh. Wow.
But that's how you were
It's
raised.
how I was raised.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was also raised on like that halved soul idea. Have you heard of that? Like the
Mm-mm.
idea that I had a first grade teacher who told us in religious school that like as a woman you or as a girl you have half a soul and you're looking for your other half a soul in a man, and whenever
Oh,
you marry him you will finally be whole. There's a
okay.
which I like anytime a teacher said something to me, I would really internalize it as like, this is a true statement. That is how the world works. You know, this
Right.
person was put in front of me. They are knowledgeable and intelligent, and I must absorb that, you know?
Yeah.
And there's actually a really great book by, it's either Judith Pintar or Edith Pintar, but it's called Halved Soul. And it addresses that and it addresses the myths that are told to women about like how we should be and who we are. And I found it at a Goodwill and it was mind blowing. And I was like, oh my
Really.
God. Yeah. And it was the title Halved Soul that like drew me in and was like, I think I'll buy that for 99 cents. And
Yeah.
it like healed a big part of me. I still remember the chalkboard drawing. Like she drew like a circle, but like a half of it with like a plus sign in it. Like, why would you
Right.
teach a kid that, you
Right.
know? Especially girls. Like, why would you
Yeah,
ever
like
teach
that's
us
not going to
that?
help your self-esteem at all
Right.
and
Yeah.
feeling like you're enough
Exactly.
because you still
Yeah.
have to find your other half.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not enough. I'm a half. And then in my case, I'm like I'm a quarter, you know, or I'm an eighth.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so from that point on, I felt like because I brought him back in, each time something happened that I was unhappy with, it seemed like he took me a little less seriously when I told him it bothered me. And again, like that's not my fault. It's not like because I took him back in my life, I allowed him
Right.
to abuse me, and I feel like I know that that's what that sounds like, or I think it does. But I really, when it comes down to it, I think I was losing my ability to stand up for myself, or I was losing my like willingness to.
Yeah.
And it's very, it reminds me a lot of when I learned about learned helplessness in undergrad, and like gradually decreasing someone's willingness to speak up for themselves, or their willingness to say like, hey, that's not quite right, or like that doesn't feel good in my body, or that doesn't make sense based on everything I know. And it's just like there was just a lot of manipulation and coercion, and again, like literally, if you pulled out a checklist and just went down, and I'd be like, yep, 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 short of him attacking me. And then I
Right.
say that, and we would train together in the martial art we were doing, and I got hurt a lot. And looking back on it now, I think to myself, like, I genuinely think this man is using martial arts to carry out like
So
anger,
when
and
you guys would like spar each other or do whatever, you would get hurt by
I would get
him.
hurt. And then there were times where he would tell me I'd hurt him, but he's a large person and very strong, and like trained for the Olympics. Can I say that? I don't know.
It's up to you.
Okay, yeah. But like I'm only saying that to like
Yeah.
the level of training that this person has, and is like a powerhouse.
Right.
And at the time I was like maybe 140 pounds, and like I'm like 170 now,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I've been lifting weights. I don't do that sport anymore. I had
Right.
to leave. And
Oh.
so I'm like, like I know I'm not like thick, but I'm like, ooh, like this is me like filled out. And at the time I was so lean, and like if somebody put pressure on me, like it hurt.
Right.
But I was also like super trained up, so like I didn't get bruises a bunch. Like we condition our bodies
Right.
in martial arts to like push through injuries, and which also factors into tolerating abuse at home. I have learned and realized. But yeah, like there were times where I would be silly or playing around, and he'd be like, "Oh, you hurt me." And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I keep thinking because you're like this larger than life human that like I can't hurt you. And he was like,
Right.
"Well, that's not okay, and you need to realize." And now I'm like, that's such a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
I did not hurt him. But there were times when I actually really did like get a submission on this person, or like, like there are certain skills that he was very good at. There are certain skills I was quite good at, and didn't matter that I was smaller or like lower ranked. I actually like
Right.
there were times when I really did like win a round.
Yeah.
And I saw this like fire of anger, and then he like hit it. And I don't know how else to explain it, but it was like about to flare up, and he like stuffed it down. But he was mad, like real mad. And I was like, ooh, I was like, yeah, I won. But like there were other guys I would train with who had the same reaction to me winning against them.
Right.
And like they would look angry, and I would always be like, well, yeah, I'm sounds terrible, so bear with me. I'd be like, I'm a woman, they weren't expecting it, they're pissed because I won, and like in your face,
Yeah.
like please believe that women are strong, and we can
Right.
do hard things,
Right.
and we can even hang in there with men that are bigger than us. And by the way, this is a self-defense art, so I would hope we could, because you're advocating this to women as a way to teach them how to protect themselves. So why the hell are you surprised that works,
Right.
Like it really, but like I was feeling that, but I couldn't have put it into words back then.
Yeah.
And to this day, people will be like, oh, like men and women shouldn't train together. They shouldn't compete at a certain level. It's like when the boys and girls are training at younger levels or competing, they all compete together.
Yeah.
And then as we become adults, they separate us out.
Okay.
And I always think to myself, like, if we're teaching this as a method of self-defense, and most of the time it's being marketed to women, why would we then imply, by the way we set up our competitions, and a lot of people get mad at me for saying this if they participate in these sports, but why would we make such a strong statement of saying that like when you get to a higher level, you have to separate them out because there's no way the women could possibly win against the men?
Right.
I personally think it's crap, and I usually do better against men.
Yeah. Right.
And I think it's probably because I'm like, I have a little more drive to try to kick a guy's butt than I
Yeah.
do a woman,
Right.
like, and that is not a knock on women, because I'll go hard against women too.
Right.
But I'm just like, I have like this degree of fear that comes from being around a man that's trying to fight me in a martial art that like
Right.
brings it out of me more. Whereas
Right.
with women, like I feel a little safer,
Yeah.
And so it's more like sportsmen versus like, I'm going to try to get this
Yeah.
round to be over as soon as possible.
But like you even said, it's being taught as self-defense, and 9 times out of 10, probably mostly 10 out of 10 times, it's going to be a dude attacking a woman.
Correct.
Not
Yes.
not another girl.
Right. Which is like not to say that men aren't attacked, because they are. And I just
Right.
want to go ahead and address that, for the people that are like, this happens to men too. 'Cause yes, it does. But if you look at statistics, it happens to women more often
Right.
and at a much higher rate. And perception is such a factor in all of that. And so to have men being like, oh, I can't believe that you beat me in that round, which they would never say either.
Right.
There's always this thing like, oh, I let you get that submission, I let you get the tap. No, you didn't.
Of course.
I saw how pissed off you were. Like,
Right.
you only hit it after the fact.
Right.
Not immediately when it happened,
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, also, like, I had to work so hard for that. I know I got it. Like, don't
Right.
even.
Right.
Also, I saw you struggling to breathe. Like, I also have medical training. I know what I'm looking at,
Right, exactly.
And I never said any of that. I was just like, okay, whatever. I was very quiet in training. And, but yeah, I was like, why are y'all always surprised when I'm able to do this in a way that subdues you?
Right.
That's the point,
Yeah.
So anyway, just gaslighting crap from him, both in training and then at home. And then comments about women in general, like extreme misogyny, that like now if I heard someone say those things out loud, I would rip them a new one. Right. And I do. And I do probably like more than makes anyone comfortable, because I have observed in my life, like anytime I hear men making comments like this, it turns out that they are absolute pieces of crap humans.
Right.
And it's never been the case that someone says something like that and they're a nice person.
Yeah.
And I used to let it slide because I grew up with a father who would like make fun of my mom for wearing makeup, things like that. Like, oh, get that stuff off your face. And so like he was making fun of a woman fighter who had cellulite. And I'm like, please look at pictures of Serena Williams, one of the most freaking goddess women in the entire world. She has cellulite. I have cellulite. Women have cellulite.
Right.
That's part of our bodies. And by the way, we're hot, like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I wish I would have said that then. And instead I just was like very quiet. And I was like,
you were so in it though.
I was like, oh, maybe we're not supposed to have that. Maybe I should train harder, And I was like, maybe one day mine will go away. That's what I would say to myself. And now I'm like, now I'd hang it out there and be like, look at it, lick it. Like, I don't care.
Right, right.
Celebrate it. This is a woman's body and it's amazing, but I was still like fighting a lot of conditioning, and I still fight it now. It's not like it's gone away. I've just gotten so much better at being like proud of my body and the way it shows up in the world.
Right.
Precisely because it's still here.
Right.
And I do, like, I have that dichotomy of thinking that, like, there's me and then there's my body and, like, we're somehow separate things. And, but I'm, like, grateful. Like, I'm so grateful that I'm here and I'm present, and I work mostly my knees, whatever, and my shoulder is something, my elbow something, whatever. But at the time, I just was quiet and I didn't say anything. And he would make comments about women like that a good bit. And I remember thinking like, oh, I'm so honored he doesn't talk about me like that. But of course he does, Yeah. And of course, I'm sure he did.
Did you feel like you were becoming like a shell of yourself?
Oh, like absolutely. Yeah. Like getting quieter, which probably wasn't possible. Yeah. Because I have a tendency to try to make myself small anyway. But then also, like as a bartender, I feel like part of our job is to be an actor to a degree, like entertain people, make them feel welcomed, comforted, be present for them. Right. Like I'm very much an extroverted introvert. Yeah. I will go home and hang out with my cats and work on my plants and cook food and not talk for like days, and I would be fine, Right. But then I also love people and I want to know people's stories and I want to be around people. But in martial arts, I wanted to be small and quiet and just keep my head down and train hard. And a lot of that had also come from training, because that wasn't the only place I trained. I trained at multiple gyms throughout my experience of doing martial arts for like over a decade. And the gyms I trained at in the past, before the last few I was at, if I was like too loud or too fun or too like engaged, I incurred what I felt like it was my fault, because I was too like I don't know, like I was like showing up too much. And so I was like targeted by women and targeted by men. And
Mm,
each time I would report, like, hey, this guy's doing some weird things. Like, are y'all aware of that? Is this a pattern? Can you keep an eye on him for me? I don't like what I'm seeing. And they'd be like, oh, well, he never did that until you got here. And, I'd later find out, like years later, after getting to know more things, no, he did that to everyone,
mm-hmm.
They just didn't want to acknowledge that their gym had a problem.
Right.
And then women were operating on a scarcity mindset, which gets enforced by coaches of like, if I don't get the coaching from this coach as a woman in this gym and like a minority presence in this gym, I'm never going to get help. So I have to compete with a woman next to me. And I would
Mm,
encounter that a lot. So like if I was too vocal, if I was, cracking jokes, if I was trying to be friends with people, I would get a lot of like pushback from the women I was training with. And then going back to the part where like I feel more safe around women, that was leaving me feeling so ostracized because I don't
right.
feel safe around the men. And then the women weren't wanting me to be like part of the little tiny crew because we're always the
Right.
minority. It's like the only place you don't have to wait on the bathroom is like a
Right.
women's martial arts
Yeah.
bathroom.
Yeah.
It's like 50 dudes in like
Yeah.
one bathroom and like one or two of us in the other one.
Mm-hmm.
It's a life hack somehow, I'm sure.
Sounds like you loved it though.
I loved it. I loved it so much. So like when I was younger, I was in dance and basketball and piano. My mom thought if she kept us busy constantly, we'd never do drugs and never get pregnant. Those were like her two things she worried about,
Right.
which I was like, there's other things I was interested in doing, but that's
Yeah.
okay. I also later found out that I had asked to do martial arts as a kid. I didn't know that, or I don't remember. I had like an estranged aunt who was like, "I'm glad you learned how to fight. I'm glad you finally like found your voice because you used to be such a feisty child, and I thought that was so cool. And then like you got really quiet at some point."
Mm.
And I remember thinking like, "Can you say that again? Like, can you come back here? Like,
Yeah.
what was that?" And she was like, "Yeah, your mom was worried that you were gonna get like your ass beat at school for being mouthy."
Mouthy, yeah.
And she didn't want that to happen to you. And I was like, turns out I'm really good at fighting. I wish you'd have, like let's say I got my ass kicked at school in first grade. Okay, go put me in fight training.
Right,
And then the
right.
next time this kid tries to kick my butt, not that I'm advocating this as a solution, but like it would have probably helped me
Yeah.
realize like, hey, I'm really good at this stuff. Like, I don't know, it's like I think about things I could have done as an athlete that
Yeah.
I don't think are realistic goals now. And I'm like, man, I feel like I missed out. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I once actually got recruited by an Olympian in judo. Judo is not what I did, but I thought he was full of crap. I didn't realize he was actually an Olympic champion. I just thought he was like this older dude who just wanted to like show me. I was like, and I thought everyone could do the moves he was asking me to do. It was at like this like basically a job fair, but for like events you could attend. And
Mm-hmm.
like now that I've done martial arts and I ended up teaching those moves at one point, I realized that like it's quite hard for people to grasp those, much less grasp them immediately. And I was able to like flip guys, like guys taller than me, which works because my hips are lower, so I automatically had an advantage there.
Yeah.
But like I was able to do these moves just by watching them once, and that is actually unique. And I didn't know that. I figured this guy was just trying to recruit people because he wanted numbers.
Right.
And he tried so hard to get me to come train with him, and I ended up being like kind of a creepy dude.
Yeah.
And then turns out it's because I had a really natural
Right.
aptitude for that. And instead, I went to medical school, which to this day I'm like, man, I wish I had been brave enough to say no to that, but that's okay. Um, but yeah, I think I forgot where I was going with any of
We were
that.
just talking about this guy, and you kind of missed out,
Yeah, yeah,
because you
it's
didn't take that serious. And
yeah.
if you would have only
So
known, right?
yeah, it's that's one of those times where like I've been listening to a lot of history podcasts about women in history because I feel like I didn't learn about any women in history, and I really wish I had because it would have helped me feel more okay with who I am as a person from a younger
Mm-hmm.
age,
Right.
and the things I'm interested in that aren't like socially considered like girls or women's things.
Right.
But I listen to all these podcasts about great women in history and athletes and scientists and social activists and civil rights amazing women that like we don't even hear their names sometimes. and
Right.
and I look at their lives now in retrospect and I look and there's there's like points in time where they could have gone like one way or the other, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like the two roads diverge.
Right.
And I look at that very much like I could have gone and trained with an Olympic judo champion, the judo champion for 5 or 6 months intensively every day, or I could have gone to medical school. And the short story there is like I did my first year and I could have done it and I could have kept going and become a doctor, like, but like just because I could do it didn't mean I was supposed to. And I
Right.
was so miserable and I hated my life and I
Your heart
quit.
wasn't in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very much a thing that made my parents happy, that made my mom brag about me, that made her remember I existed, that like made her acknowledge me and celebrate me. And
Yeah.
I had learned that so well that like if I talked about medicine with her, she would talk to me. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I didn't realize that consciously at the time, you know.
Because you're like, hey, look at me. I'm over here.
Yeah,
Look what I'm doing now. Like
exactly. Yeah.
anything to
Like,
get that attention from
yeah,
her.
like as a kid, I realized that like if I did the things my parents liked, then they would pay attention to me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Did you have siblings?
I'm the baby. So,
Okay.
yeah, which no one, people always think I'm the middle child.
Okay.
But yeah, so I have an older brother and older sister, and my sister is an incredible like Montessori educator, and my brother is he could be a Spartan warrior, and he's an attorney.
Okay.
We all three play classical piano, which my brother is this massive human, and I think it's amazing. He like wears a suit and has a beard and sits down and plays like Raindrop Prelude, you know, like
Oh,
and he loves Broadway, and he's a cool dude.
well-rounded.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
also my attorney for my entire DV case, which
Okay.
that happened completely by accident. And I think the judge, like the first judge I dealt with, thought that like I was taking advantage of having my brother who's an attorney. And I was like, you have no idea how much it is wild as hell that my brother's in this courtroom right now. Like it happened completely by accident the day
Really?
before I was supposed to be in court. Like I didn't have an attorney, and my brother just happened to call me to say like, hey, I'm in your city, like what you been up to, wanted to stop by and say hi. And I like ended up meeting up with him, and
Did
then
he
like
know what was, he had no idea
no,
what was
he had
going on?
no idea that I'd been in a relationship that was abusive. Like because I
Oh,
like to the world, I portrayed my relationship as this like beautiful, amazing thing, you
right.
know,
Right.
which like very conditioned to look presentable at all times, to like portray like my family has a lot of abuse and trauma in it, and we were taught to present this like unified front
Mm-hmm.
where we all looked like we were happy and loving.
Right.
And at this point in my life, I'm completely estranged from my parents by my choice, and not lightly, you know, like
Yeah.
I tried there very hard. But and even saying that, like I'm like scared that someone's gonna see this and be like, oh my God, she doesn't talk to her parents. I'm like, and it's not a secret, but like
Right.
at the same time, I'm just like, oh, there's that little bit of like, I'm sorry I'm disgracing the family by saying that, but also like I'm saying it because it's true and that's real.
Yeah.
But my siblings and I were estranged for a while too. And that all came from when I quit medical school. My mom kicked me out of our family. She was like, if you won't be a doctor, like you don't get to be part of the family.
Wow.
And I was like, there's so many other things I learned about myself after that. You didn't get the chance to kick me out of the family for all those things.
Right.
You know, I was like, it
Right.
was just like, oh,
Right.
you don't want to be a doctor. And I was like, would you like to meet me now? You know,
Yeah.
by the way, I have tattoos. Holy crap, you know? Like
Yeah.
having pink hair was like the next offense for her. Just
Uh,
yeah, which now it's like it's washed out. I grew it out because I got tired of. I had 8 years of pink hair and it was glorious. But
really?
yeah, oh
Oh,
yeah, it was
wow.
like bright pink and like balayage, and it made
Ooh.
me happy. It was like my power hair, but
Yeah.
also it was very much like a. It was part of like a. God, what is the word? Um, what does Spartans carry? The shield. It was like a shield.
Uh,
I felt like my pink hair was like keeping me safe
right.
somehow, if
Right.
that makes sense. Or
Mm-hmm.
like it was
Like your armor, kind of.
yeah,
Yeah,
there you
armor.
go,
Yeah.
armor. Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say
I
leather
couldn't think.
jacket, and then I was like, what am I
Yeah.
saying leather
Yeah.
jacket? Yeah,
Yeah.
literally armor.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so it's just you know, I was very much taught to stuff down whatever was wrong and
Mm-hmm.
hide it and just look fine.
Well, now, were
And
you still talking to your parents with the DV guy?
no. So, and that was
You were
another
estranged
thing.
from them at that
Yeah.
point?
And,
Okay.
they talk about social isolation and domestic violence. It was extremely easy for this man to socially isolate me,
Right.
because I had already been isolated from my family by choice. And he knew that. And it had been, you know, probably years since I had really interacted with them or talked to them.
Okay.
They might text me, but I would delete it or, block it. And so he knew that. And then I really hadn't talked to my siblings much because when I stepped away from my parents, I didn't want to change the narrative that was helping my siblings get through their daily life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it
Okay.
was a thing I talked to my counselor about at the time is, like me stepping away from that, I understood highlighted a lot of issues in our family that we had been taught to subdue or suppress.
Mm-hmm.
And I had at that point at least understood that like you don't force other people to confront things they're not ready to confront.
Right.
And that's not fair to them. I wouldn't want someone to do that to me. And so, kind of by default, by stepping away from my parents, I kind of sacrificed my relationship with my brother and my sister at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then my sister and I also had a falling out for other reasons. And I actually told her, I was like, hey, don't talk to me. I don't like the way that you're speaking to me. I don't like the way you interact with me. Because we had a very, like, that relationship had gotten very aggressive too. And
Okay.
I would usually be the one that would just like, if there was a fight, I'd be like, it's my fault, even when it wasn't. Or,
Just for peace.
correct,
Yeah.
yes. And I
Yeah.
was just toughing it down. And that was one great thing about training martial arts that I appreciated is like, it made me kind of be like, no, I'm not gonna take that. And like, what are you gonna do? You wanna fight me? Guess what? I know how to fight now.
Right.
Like you
Right.
don't get to do what I used to do. None of you do because now I can
Right.
defend myself.
Right.
And and I, before cutting my parents off, my mom specifically, I've always noticed that she responds to like masculine energy in a way that kind of shuts her down. And when she saw me as a fighter, she interacted with me differently, and she would
Mm.
not try to escalate things with me as much. And I also, in turn, I wouldn't back away from her. I would stand up to her, like literally physically stand up to her. And, like as a kid, I remember like one of my like last resort type things is like I pulled a chef knife on her once to get her to leave me and my sister alone. And then as an adult, I was like, come at me. What are you going to do?
Was she abusive
Yes,
growing
she's
up?
extremely abusive. Yeah.
Okay.
And it like the physical aspect of it landed probably 95% of the time on my sister. And
Mm.
when I addressed it to my mom after like years of counseling, and I was still in that thought process of thinking like I'm only laughing because I'm like I just think it's so ridiculous now. It's not that it's funny, but I'm just like I thought that if I like brought it to her and had like really turned it over in my head and like thought of like the most like kind productive way to address it and to like give her an out and be like I know you were so stressed, I know that this was going on, and you were shouldering all this for this family, and you also simultaneously beat the crap out of my sister in front of me repeatedly while I was begging you to stop, like, can we talk about that? Can we start healing it? And her response was like, you're wrong, that never happened, you're making it up.
So she didn't even own it, which
No.
makes it way worse.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and she would say to me things like, "You have a perfect family. You have a mom and dad who put food on the table, who take care of you, who don't drink alcohol, like as if alcohol is the devil, like we don't drink alcohol." And like jokes because I would find like bottles of wine in her sewing room, and then she'd be like, "Those are gifts," and then I was like, "We never give bottles of wine to anyone, so who are you giving gifts to?" You know,
Right.
like but like the cognitive dissonance there was so strong that like it took a counselor pointing that out to me. Like I couldn't have even like put that together.
Yeah.
And my mom she's a nurse, and then she would also like we weren't even allowed to take pain meds, but then there was like a crap ton of pain meds in a closet, and I was like, well, whose are those? Like, and then just
Do as I say, not as I do.
correct.
Yeah.
And that's one of her favorite phrases.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. But like she'd be driving with her knee. Do as I say, not as I do. Don't ever drive with your knee. I drove with my knee for years. I literally like, and I don't anymore. But I catch myself wanting to, and I'm like,
Yeah.
two hands on the wheel, like drive,
Yeah.
drive responsibly.
So she actually would say that.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Wow.
like all the phrases that I later learned are kind of like red flags.
Yeah.
Like I put you in this world, I can take you out of it, or like keep crying and I'll give you something to cry about. Like anything that basically threatens to kill your kid. I heard every single one of them said in such a way that like I thought I was at fault for doing anything that would like make my parents unhappy with me.
Right.
And in hindsight, I'm like, man, that is not in the parenting books, like
No.
that's not the crap you're supposed to say to your kids.
Right. Was dad physical to you?
Yes and no. So he is more of the, when he gets mad, he like breaks things and slams things. And there was one time when like I remember running away from him, like locking myself in the bathroom, but I genuinely can't remember what happened after.
Yeah.
And there's parts of my life like that where there's just blanks. And
It's your brain protecting you.
correct, yes. And I've had counselors that have talked to me about that, in particular like my mom's family and the father figure there. And then I've actually recently met another estranged family member who kind of confirmed a lot of this for me. And it was like very heartbreaking because it broke her to tell me. And I felt bad for even like asking. But she validated so much of this. And like she's one of the people that as kids, she was like our cautionary tale that was given to us. Like, if you misbehave, you'll get kicked out of the family, just like insert name of family.
Right.
And then
Okay.
turns out she actually ran away
I
from
was
the
gonna say
family.
she probably
Yeah,
removed
she
herself.
grabbed like
Yeah.
her 3 things that she had that belonged to her and got the hell out. And I got a chance to tell her, like 2 years ago or so, I think I bumped into her kind of by accident. And this is after years and years of counseling and realizing that like she is not an evil person. She is someone who escaped, and she was used as this like way of controlling us. Not her personally, but like her story
Right.
was twisted to make her this evil entity, and she's not. And I got a chance to tell her like, hey, thank you for leaving the family, and I'm so sorry because you must have felt so lonely, and I don't even know because I don't know her life.
Right.
And I told her, I said, I have left that family. I've run away, and I am being portrayed as this villain now. And I just want you to know that like, I hope this doesn't sound weird, but like I'm really proud of you, because I think she left when she was like 12 or 13.
Wow.
She was really young, and my mom to this day is like, she stole my hairbrush when she left. And I'm like, that's what you think about?
That's what you take away from it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
all 3 of the girls in that family were sexually abused, and she ran away. My mom and her other sibling did not, and there's 10 kids in that family. It's like a very, like, I feel like it could be studied as like one of those psychology cases where you're like,
Yeah.
here we go.
Right.
All of the information you need for a case study is right here.
Yeah.
That's my family. But I told her, like, I don't know what you mustered to get out of there, but like, I'm really proud of you, and I hope it's okay that I say that, because I realize that I'm like technically your niece and you're my
Yeah.
aunt, but
Yeah.
like, thank you for doing that, because now that I see things clearly, now that I know you exist, and now that I can see the same thing happening to me in my story within my family, like, and I know that I'm not an awful person, but I'm being portrayed that way.
Did that make you feel a little better though, seeing that there was someone else in the family out there
Yeah.
that did escape, did
Yeah.
walk away, and she was talked about exactly how you're being talked about now?
Yes, and
Yeah.
there's another woman that divorced one of my relatives, and she is portrayed the same way. She's, but then I met her later in life, same thing. She ended up in the same city as me, which I'm just like, I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
And she's
Y'all need
this
to
like,
stick together.
right? But she's this vibrant, like amazing, like kind of like hippie vibes, just kind woman.
Yeah.
And I remember like she was one of the few people that like took the time to talk to me and spend time with me and like brush my hair. And I have like a picture of that, like a picture of me and my sister sitting on the countertop, and she's brushing her hair. And my sister even said like, I think she's the only one that really like actually saw us.
Yeah.
And I remember missing her when that divorce happened, and they all talked about her like she was this like horrible person,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
like she
of course.
destroyed everything. And it's just so interesting because, like, as I'm describing all that, I think about, like, how I'm portrayed in my martial arts community. And it's the same thing. You know, like, I had to leave because of everything that happened. I couldn't stay because so many people backed up the man that tried to kill me instead of supporting me when I spoke up. And so when I left, I've
Let's
been,
go back to that a
yeah,
little bit. Let's go back to after the time you went back, same old shit's kind of happening. You know, he's still being an ass,
yeah,
still gaslighting.
yeah.
What led to?
Oh, he also, like, didn't disclose his STD status to me and lied to me about it. He was taking medicine for it, and turns out I studied pharmacology. You know,
Yeah,
I was in medical school, dude. You know, like, also there's Google. You don't have to have a medical education to be able to be like, what is this name here of this molecule or molecular
yeah,
structure, and
yeah.
what is the corresponding drug name? You know, you
And he
can
didn't
just
disclose it to you.
no. And I heard a pill bottle one day, and I was thinking to myself, like, what is that? And I walked into the bathroom and he was taking it, and I was like, what are you taking? And he was like, oh, it's just preventative. I was like, but I was like, I didn't know you took any medicine. You don't even take a fucking gummy, you know, like a
Right.
like a vitamin. What are
Yeah.
you taking? And it was medicine for that particular STI. And sorry, I said STD earlier. STI.
Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, STD can carry stigma, and I very much don't ever want to be the person that, like, buys into that, because I have I have seen so many people who are debilitated by a diagnosis like that,
Yeah.
and whether it's treatable or not, like, it doesn't make them less of a human.
Right.
And this person, this man that I was dating, had been actively shaming people who had the same fucking diagnosis that he did. And I was like, you're such a dick. And then also, like, you're putting me at risk, and you didn't even tell me. And I was like, I'm a like, first of all, you don't have to be a rape survivor to, like, want autonomy over your body, but also,
Right.
like, I'm extra triggered by this because I've already had someone decide that my body was theirs, or that they could control
Took
me,
it.
you
Yeah.
know, and I would get tested, like, obsessively because I was so scared that
Right.
like, something had happened to my body
Right.
that was incurable. And I was so grateful every time I get a test back that said everything was negative.
Yeah.
And then I was talking to him and I was like, why would you not tell me this? And he's like, well, I was worried you'd break up with me. And I was like, you don't get to control what I do. And if you thought I might make a different decision if I had this information, you were even more so obligated to tell me,
And I
because
think legally they're supposed to
right,
disclose that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, you controlled my ability to choose for myself.
Yeah.
That's fucked. And I was like, what else do I need to know about you? Like, what else are you
Was
not
he
telling
arrogant
me?
about it?
Yes and no. It was like, at first he got, like, annoyed, angry, and then he was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't even tie it together, blah, blah. It just, like, all
Yeah.
that shit. And I was like, I'd literally been sitting at a table with him and, like, his best friend, I think, like, a couple weeks before. And he was talking about how people shouldn't allowed to be trained if, like, they shouldn't be allowed to, like, be on the mats if they had, like, a herpes outbreak. And then turns out I was like, oh, okay. And, there was, like, one point later in the relationship where, like, he thought he was starting to have, like, something pop up. And I was like, okay, well, hey, good news. I don't have to Google this. I already know how to handle this because I
Right.
used to give health consults and
Right.
like, I was like, okay, take your meds. Don't interact with me. Like, we're not going to share cups or whatever, like, all the
Yeah.
crap. I can't remember the protocol now, but I was like,
Right.
let's do that. Take your medicine. You're fine. I'm not judging you. I love you. You are important to me. I support you. Just please also keep me safe while you experience this outbreak. And then once it's resolved and you are no longer at risk of passing it on, we'll be back to smooching and whatever,
Right.
like,
Right.
and this is, like, obvious shit, like, I'm sitting here thinking, like, oh, I'm doing such a good job because I'm so understanding. I'm like, no, this is understood part of daily life,
Right.
like, people know these things. It's not because I was an EMT or because I went to medical school,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, like, it's so nice that I happen to know this and I can support you through it. No, like, you could watch a commercial in 5
Right.
seconds, learn. So and he kept trying to kiss me and, like, make me, like, and I was like, why are you doing this? And he was like, well, you just don't love me. And I was, and then I caught myself over explaining for like 30 minutes about how I do love him and how much I love him, and me, I'm not trying to stigmatize him, and oh, you're shaming me for this diagnosis, or you're stigmatizing me for it. And then it was like I was like defending myself for so long, and then
Because he probably made you feel like you had to.
yeah,
All the guilt
I
trips, the
said something
gaslighting.
wrong, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and so it was like all the things, and there was also a issue once where he knew that I felt nervous around guns, and he like hid one in my closet once, and I went to go grab something off my top shelf, and a gun fell out and landed on the ground in front of me, and I got so scared, and I was like crying hysterically,
Yeah.
and he like thought it was funny, and I was like, why was there a gun in my closet? And he was like, oh, I put it there in case you needed it. And I was like, but you've tried to make me shoot guns before, and I don't want to. Like, I don't want any part of it.
Right.
Like, my sister took me to like shoot a gun. I think I've shot a gun like twice in my life. One time was like skeet shooting, and I did not enjoy it. And the second time was like she wanted to go target practice because she was worried about getting attacked, and that was one of her methods of empowering herself. And so I went with her, and I literally like I felt nauseous holding a gun and shooting a gun, and in all of my training in martial arts too, and like when I learned weapons training, I got to a point where I had to decide like, if I ever do take a gun away from someone, will I feel comfortable using it? And I know without a shadow of doubt, I would never. And I would tell people, I was like, no, I was like, I carry a knife on purpose as my like chosen weapon of self-defense. But even then, like my knowledge of like anatomy and like, where all the veins and arteries are, I'm like, I wouldn't even want to stab anybody either. I want to use my words and get away, know?
Right.
Or like I will subdue them in such a way that I can like make sure that they're still okay and I can get away and they can wake up and go about their, whatever. And hopefully I can get them identified, like
Right.
that's, but I knew for a fact, like even training with like plastic fake guns, I hated them. And so, and he
Which
knew
I'm
that.
sure you. Yeah,
I had
you
talked to him
told
about it. Yeah. So, he was sitting there acting like, oh, I didn't mean to put a gun in your closet. Yeah, of course you did, and things like that. Like if I was talking to him, I put my phone face down. That's my way of respecting someone, by saying like, I'm putting my phone down. That way I'm not looking at my screen. I flipped it over, and he'd be like, what are you hiding? Why'd you turn your phone over? What do you not want me to see? And I'd be like, fine, shit. Okay, I'll turn it back over. Like what, just things like that. It was like anything I did
Where
was
you're like,
wrong.
dude, I already know you get in my phone. So,
Right.
yeah.
And he was mad because I didn't want to put on my Facebook that I was in a relationship with, like, and link our things together. And I was like, I post to you all the damn time.
Right.
Every other photo is a picture of me making you food, the dinner I made for you, the house we shared. Like no one is under any kind of confusion as to whether or not we're dating, Like I don't, and I was like, I personally just don't want to put it on there. And I don't have
But
to.
you don't have to explain that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I just not a thing I want to do. But anyway, it's I feel like I'm talking so much. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
But yeah, I like there were things like I got in like a minor car accident, and he like showed up to the scene to help, but then like promptly like left and like went out of town on a trip and like didn't check on me, and like it just things like that where I was
So
just
all
like
these red flags, like
so many, yeah. And then like accused me of cheating on him while he was gone, and I was like, I was actually just very triggered and kept hearing the sound of metal hitting together and like couldn't sleep for a week. That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Thanks
whatever.
so much for checking on me.
Exactly.
Caring.
Yeah. And that was one of the times where he made a joke about cheating on me. It was like I had just gotten in a car accident, and he was like making jokes about how he was going to be in a different zip code, and so it didn't count if he cheated on me. And yeah.
So he could turn around and be like, "Well, I told you."
Yeah, literally,
who
yeah.
knows?
Well, I made a joke about it, and you didn't,
Yeah.
But I would like. I think at that point I was like, hey, why would you make that joke? That's fucked up. That hurts, But anytime I would say like, hey, this hurts, it was like it would happen more. So like any kind of vulnerability that was shared got exploited, and
It's a tool for him to control you more.
yes, yeah. And then I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, it's so nice to be vulnerable with someone. It's so nice to be able to share myself with someone and explain things about myself I've never been able to really like talk about with, because I think of like, I went to counseling originally because my brother's fiance died, and I like couldn't deal with the grief. Like I don't even remember that like span of 6 months of time at all.
Yeah.
I know what I was doing. I know what I was doing because of like Facebook posts that I made. And otherwise, like there is nothing there. There's a complete blank.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I first went to counseling, was for grief counseling.
Okay.
And that amazing woman, her name was Jane. I don't remember her last name. I don't know where she is, but I'm just like, if ever I bumped into her again, she was just a grad student at the time. Like she was formerly had been in a different profession and went back to school because she
Yeah.
felt like counseling would better serve humanity.
Right.
And
How did she pass away?
she was in a car accident.
So it was a sudden.
It was sudden, and I was actually supposed to have gone with her and been on that trip with her. She was driving to see my brother at he was in law school, and her car hydroplaned. And she was an incredible human, you know. Like I say it that she's my sister, even though I never got to really like truly say that.
Right.
But she was intelligent as all hell, and she'd be studying like she'd come over and like take our dog for a walk while my brother was in law school. Like she would come over and take our dog Gizmo for a walk, and I'd like go walk with her, and then she'd plop down on the couch and like open all of her books and study, and you could tell that she loved what she was studying. And the whole time she's studying, she'd be wearing a shirt with like an Anchorman quote on it, like that's
Yeah. Yeah.
or she was like kind of shy sometimes, but like if her favorite basketball team like Tar Heels were playing, she'd do like these like victory dances, and I was like, oh my god, Kate just did a dance, like that's so cute.
That was probably really hard on your brother too.
Oh my god, awful.
Seeing him go through that.
Yeah. And what's interesting is like at this point in my life, I feel like I have a better grasp on how to be present for people who are grieving because I'm able to be present for myself more.
Right.
And at the time, when I look back on it, I don't think I did anything particularly great for him. I stuffed it down. I acted like I was fine.
Right.
And I think that's the worst thing I could have done.
Yeah.
And
Well, the trauma, the shock, all of it comes
right.
into play.
Yeah. And I remember thinking like, because the way we were taught to grieve, which was not, we weren't taught. I learned that from my counselors, but the thing we were taught to do was like ignore it and keep going, you know?
Yep.
Like I remember watching my little cousin fall off a unicycle as a kid. She was little and riding a unicycle, which is impressive. She's very athletic, and she fell off. And I remember seeing my uncle run over and pick her up and put her right back on and be like, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. Ignore it. And that was like a really kind of big turning point for me because I was older at that point. And I remember thinking like, she's hurt.
Right.
Her knee's bleeding.
Right.
Like, why are we not addressing that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like to her credit, she got back on and kept going. But I was like, I remember thinking and talking to a counselor, I was like, we could have gotten that same end result of her getting back up there. We could have done it in a way that nurtured her more and like helped her like take a pause, check in with her body, and then keep going. And that's a thing that I had to learn much later. Like that was not taught. So yeah, like being present for my brother when his fiance died, and really all I did was like act like I was fine and try to keep pushing through, and then like my body shut down horribly. I was so sick. Yeah. I think I had like I remember I had so many UTIs, like, and like I've never had them since then. But like I couldn't sleep. My body was just like everything was out of whack. I was
Were you with
nauseous all the
him
time.
at that point?
No, she died when I was in college still.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she just like it's a thing that, and it's around this time of year too, so it's just like so fresh. But my mom also like drove us to the morgue where they found her body, or like had her body in a body, and like made us like, she had already been identified by her parents, but my mom took us all in there and like made us like look at her in the body bag so that we didn't still think she was alive. And to this day,
you couldn't see her at the funeral?
Yeah, I don't really know. Like it's weird, right? Because like when a neighbor's cat died, that like I thought it was like my cat, they wouldn't tell me that the cat died. They let me think that the cat was alive for weeks, and I remember being pissed about it. And I was like, I'd stand outside, I'd be calling for this cat, like, where's my cat? The neighbors knew that I like took care of this cat because I loved her and I wanted a cat, and was told we could not have one because they die at some point. That was the reason I was told I couldn't have a cat, because they'll die, and then what are you gonna do? I don't know. Grieve it, bury it, learn how to
just
process
like
death.
people or
Correct,
dogs
yes.
or anything. Yes, yes.
So then like a person who is a sister to me dies, and the first step is like we all get piled in a car, driven to the morgue. We look at her in a body bag, like, and my mom like makes us like look at her so that we know she's dead. And I cannot get that image out of my
Of
brain. And
course,
then
traumatizing.
and then watching the zipper like zip over her face, and like I just think to myself like, what the hell were you thinking?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, my mom handed me her engagement ring, and I had been the one to go with my brother to help pick it out. And my mom like reached her hand in the back seat. She'd always do this. She'd like hand us stuff while she was driving and just be like,
Mm-hmm.
"Here, take that."
Mm-hmm.
And she like reached her hand back towards me, and I was like, "Yes." And she dropped this engagement ring in my hand that I had helped pick out, that like I had watched her wear and like smile and like hold her hand together. She was swimming in the lake, and she was so worried that it was gonna fall off that like she was swimming around like with her little hand in a fist, being like,
Yeah.
"It's so pretty. I'm so excited." And it was like this mangled, fucking beat up ring that was damaged from a car accident that just happened. And my mom made me hold it. And I remember thinking, like, why is this in my hand? And at the same time that she did that, she handed me a bunch of like Ativan. Like, fucked, you know? Like, this is wild. And I remember I took it, and I like, or I didn't take it. I took it in my hand, and I was like holding a ring, and I was holding a bunch of like fucking pain meds, which
Yeah.
like I got my wisdom teeth out and wasn't allowed to take pain meds. I just pushed through it. But like, yeah, and I looked at it, and I was like, no, I'm not taking that. I want to feel this. And I put it in the car door, and my mom like brought it up later. She's like, you wouldn't take the meds I gave you, and you're supposed to take them. And I was like, would you please have your shit line up? Like, I'm so
Right.
confused by her. And,
Right.
like, as, and I
Yeah.
had been in
Pick a
college for a while.
lane, lady.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, no.
Yeah.
Also, like, you taught me not to take medicines. Why did you think I was going to take it? You
Right.
know?
Right.
Like, and to this day, like if I'm prescribed something, I have this moment where I'm like, am I allowed to take it? It has my name on it, right? That was
Yeah.
for me. I did talk to a doctor about it, right? Like this
Yeah.
is okay.
Right.
And it's just why I'm like, why would you? Uh, yeah. So just very, very interesting dynamics there, but a
Yeah.
lot of like ignore your body, push through it, don't feel it, keep going.
Do you think that's what you did with him
I
too?
did,
Then
and I see
yeah.
those patterns so much. Like I loved the sport I was doing, but I also know that it wasn't necessarily healthy for me. And I say that knowing that like if you looked at me, you'd have been like, that person belongs on the front of like Muscle and Fitness magazine, which also like we all know that like those people are starved as all hell, and they ate like one piece of asparagus for the past 2 days. They barely drank
Right.
water. They took this picture, and then they like
Right.
ate food, and they
Yeah.
don't look like that when they walk around.
Right.
But like I actually looked like that walking around, and I was the most mentally unhealthy I had been since living in my biological family home.
Right.
But like horrible depression, anxiety, like, and I still have all that now, but like
Right.
just like so extremely unhealthy that like if someone told me like I needed to get back to that like level of fitness now, I'd be like, no, you
Yeah.
cannot pay me to do that.
Right.
Like, absolutely. And I was eating all the time, but like I was overtrained, I was injured, and I looked fantastic according to like whatever standard that is.
Mm-hmm.
But like, and I still fight that now. Like, I'm like, I miss having a six pack. But at the time, I thought I was unhealthy looking. And God, I hate that I just use that word. It's not unhealthy. I thought that I wasn't fit.
Right.
So like I would look at myself and I thought I was huge.
Mm.
And so much of that also comes from like my mom every day look at me, like from like day, I don't, since I could remember. The second she would like remember I existed and look at me, she'd be like, your face is swollen. What's wrong with that? Why do you have acne? What's wrong with you? Did you gain weight? Why do you look like this? Why do you, and like, and I was like, I was just coming to say hi, but okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So, we I think it kind of like came to a head for me when we were in couples counseling. And I in court, he was like, I was the one that got us into counseling. And I was like, technically, that's not true. But I told him, I was like, hey, I'm either going to leave this relationship or going to go to counseling. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I'm at. And I was like, you are doing so many scary things.
He's not
And
physical yet at this
no.
point.
Well, again, I say that and I'm like, he was literally trying to like have sex with me and when I didn't want to. Like,
Yeah.
like so
Yeah.
like he was physical. I just
Right.
didn't call it that at the time. And I
Right.
still have trouble saying it now, as you can see. But yeah, like would take a lunch break and come to make sure I was at the house. I thought he was coming to see me, but now I'm like, if I know anything, I know he was checking to make sure I was home by myself, and would not even talk to me and just like take my clothes off and like, and then pull his pants up, walk away, go. And like, so like, yeah, that's violent. You know, that's extremely violent. But I wouldn't have said that back then. I would have said that. I would have been like, he missed me, you know, or like,
Right.
it's I can't even say what I was saying to myself to convince myself it was okay, because
Yeah.
it makes me so mad now. But yeah, so I think I even said that in like court things, like, oh, he hadn't been physically violent yet. And now, like now at this point in my life, being able to look back on it, I would be like, oh, absolutely, he was violent. And was he punching me in the eye? No. But like, why is that the only kind of physical violence that we think
Right.
exists, you know?
Yep.
Like, and as a society, I think, and for so many reasons, we've been trained to think that like, if they're not punching you in the face or like kicking you, then it's not physical violence.
Right.
It's absolutely physical violence. Like choking me while you're having sex with me without asking if that's okay, that's violent, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's not acceptable. And there was
Would he
no
ever have anything to say for himself? Like when that stuff?
if I ever no, what do you mean? Like
Like,
would he
say if he was choking you and you didn't
like
agree
it?
to that or like it, like what would his response be?
I would never say I didn't like it to him.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And then
So you were afraid to say anything at that point?
yeah, and then
Yeah.
you know sometimes like after like much after the fact I'd be like, "Hey, next time you do that, could you give me a heads up?" Or like, "Can we talk about like if it's too much like what I could do to." And like now like I have so many friends now in my life these days who are like very kink positive, very like they understand consent more than any people that I met in the past.
Right.
And they would be like, "Oh no, absolute, like y'all didn't sit down and discuss and talk and establish and come up
Safe
with
word, all
safe
the things.
words or
Yeah.
even safe actions. You weren't given a squeeze toy to hold that you could let go of when you weren't happy, you know, like, you know, because it doesn't have to be words. Like, and I've learned so many things. And also like I read books and listen to podcasts too, because I feel like I have to like stuff all the info in my brain. But like I have since learned like there are ways that, and I still have my own feelings about like the aspect of choking someone, but aside from that action, like there are ways to carry out the things you're interested in a way that involves consent.
Right.
None of that was present in that relationship. And if I were to have said like, "Hey, that made me uncomfortable," I couldn't even say those words. I couldn't say, "Hey, that made me uncomfortable." I felt like something was wrong with me because I wasn't feeling comfortable with it. And because I kept being told like, "Oh, this person loves you," I was thinking like, then it's just wrong. Then it's just me being triggered. I'm just letting what happened to me, you know, over a decade ago in college. I'm letting that affect me now.
Right.
Like I'm letting it, and no, it's like no, this person was violating you, and you had a problem with it, and that's a normal response to an extremely awful situation.
Yes.
You know, but I didn't have that understanding then, at least not on a conscious level,
Right.
and yeah, so now, if I were to be asked that question now, had he been physically violent, I would say yes, absolutely.
Right.
And that's also like, as a side note, that's part of what irritates me about the legal process of addressing things like this, is you get shamed to all hell if you wait even a second to report something.
Right.
And it was thrown in my face repeatedly that I didn't report it right away. But like, I think about how I would have been able to talk about it if I had reported it that day, the day you tried to kill me. And then I think about how I would have been able to talk about it 6 months after that, and a year after that, and 2 years after that,
Right.
and now however many years it's been now. And I am so much better suited to more accurately explain what happened to me now than I was at any point
Sure.
immediately after it happened. Or and you know, like that seems so obvious to me now because I've had to learn about trauma and I've had trauma counselors. But at the time I remember being like, why can't I just answer these questions? Why can't I give this information? Why can't I succinctly boil it down and talk about it and just deliver this
Right.
information, you know?
Right.
And it's like our legal system doesn't understand trauma. It's not trauma informed at all.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating because now I'm like, ask me now. Can we redo it? Ask me now. Like, I would so much rather give my statement now. And I also remember more things now.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And then also, like, I have compartmentalized a lot because it's awful.
Yeah.
Like, even coming here today, I was texting my best friend about it. I was like, oh, I was going to, like, read through all my stuff I had written down back then, and I was going to go back through and, like, make sure that, like, I had everything, you know, concise and ready to deliver the information. And she was like, girl, I'm so glad you didn't do that. She was like, what would the point be?
Right.
And I was like, well, so I feel prepared. And she was like, no.
Yeah.
No. She's like, there's a reason why you don't keep that at the forefront every day. And I was like, oh, right. I tell people that, you know?
Yeah.
Because I have to go to work in a couple days, you know?
Right.
Like, you can't just carry it all the time. But also, like, having carried it for so long, I'm so much better able to understand what it was that happened and, like, what he did, which I know that's why we're here.
Did something lead to it, to where he tried to kill you?
Yeah, so I broke up with him and moved out.
Okay.
And I have since learned, my DV counselor talked to me about that. Like, the number of, murders or homicides is like 70% of people are killed on the day they're moving out. Or I really might be butchering that stat or the phrasing of it, so I'm sorry. But, like, the, one of those colloquial bullshit victim shaming things people say is like, well, why didn't you just leave?
Right.
But if you are understanding of the reality of situations like that, it's when you leave that you're actually, statistically speaking, at the highest risk
They're
of
going to
being...
make sure you don't.
Correct, yes. Like, it's not the act of leaving that causes it. And I catch myself saying that even to this day, and that is victim blaming. But it's the thing that, like, correlation versus causation, right? Like, I'm not causing it, but it is highly correlated. That was... We had like had a chat a couple weeks before the day that, like, was my last day of moving out, and I was like, hey, I don't think this is going well. I really think we've both tried. We tried the counseling, which, by the way, that counselor was garbage. And I reported that counselor, and I'm fine saying it. I don't know but that counselor catered so much to the guy and just, like, shamed the hell out of me in counseling, and I was like, this isn't right. And then when I reported it, the counselor was like, I don't remember you talking about domestic violence. You never brought it up. And even if you had, I wouldn't have put it in the notes because it wasn't relevant to our sessions. And I was like, the dynamics of the relationship that were violent weren't relevant to the couples counseling sessions.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a whole nother thing, but mind blown. Yeah, so we tried counseling. I was really hopeful that he would be responsive to, like, someone else telling him, hey, the things you're doing are scary and they're not okay.
Right.
And it, like, got, like, our relationship got better for a little bit, and then it just, like, tanked and went back to all the same crap. And I still remember thinking, like, we were friends before this, we can be friends after this, and we still have a lease on this house. And so, like, I brought all this information and I was like, hey, we've tried this, we tried this, we tried this. I care about you so much. I want you to be happy. I don't think you're happy in this. I know I'm not happy in this. Can we talk about it? And he was, like, really receptive. And I was like, oh, yay, like, this will go great. And, like, in hindsight, it was manipulation. He wasn't receptive at all. He was already thinking, like, how can I keep her here? But he was like, yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's not going well. Let's talk about what this looks like moving forward, because we still have X number of months left on this lease. And he was like, I know for my part, I'm going to struggle with jealousy if you start dating someone else. So, like, I don't think that you living here is a great idea. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because it's a 2-bedroom house. And I was like, I fully support you dating someone else, which now I'm like, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And I'm so scared because I know he's dated other people. And all of the martial arts people are like, yay, congratulations on your new girlfriend. And I'm like, do you mean the new target? The future victim?
Right.
Y'all teach women to defend themselves, but you're celebrating this man having another girlfriend? Like, that's insane. That's another thing. But I was like, I would really support you dating someone. I want you to find a person. I want you to be happy. And he was like, no, that won't work. And I was like, okay, well, you make more money than I do. why don't you keep this house and I'll go try to find something less expensive. And, you know, like, and I had gone through a period of time of like not being employed temporarily. And so, and during that time, he still made me pay for half of everything, by the way, after being all like, I want to take care of you. Yeah. So I was like, I'll go get an apartment. And in hindsight, I wish I had paid attention to this. I got an apartment, but didn't tell him. And I had also been looking at apartments for months. Like I had screenshots on my phone from like months and months before. I'd even gone to like meet with people about being their roommate to like move out when he
Right.
was like away. And I was thinking like, I'll just get out of the house and he'll never know. And then like he'll come back and I'll be like, I had to leave, bye, you know?
Yeah.
And like now I'm like, okay, if you catch yourself doing that, you're probably scared of the person that you're trying to get
Right.
away from, you know?
Right.
Like that's not safe. Or you don't feel safe.
Right.
And please pay attention to that.
Yeah.
But I got an apartment. I still remember exactly the day, and I remember being so thankful that this apartment didn't have a security deposit requirement. And to this day, and it was a tiny little space with a Murphy bed, and it was less than 300 square feet. And I walked in there, and I was like, "Fuck it, yeah, let's do it," you know. And the lady was so sweet and so gentle and so kind, and I must have been radiating stress because like I remember thinking like, why is she being so like careful with me?
Yeah.
Because she was like taking her time to like, explain it, and I thought she was just like talking slowly, but then I listened to her talk to someone else one day and she just talked. And she like went over the lease with me a couple times, make sure that I read it, make sure I understood it, walked me through, talked to me about like, you know, a little mattress topper you could get to like make the Murphy bed more comfy.
Yeah.
And you know, she's like, do you think you'll be happy here? Do you think you'll feel safe here? And you know, there's people like that popped in my life around that time that I still think to myself like, there's not a logical explanation for like angelic humans that pop up like that when you need them the most. But I'm so grateful. And I also wonder, like, was there a security deposit? I have no idea. But I used the last little bit of money in my account to secure this apartment. And then I was scared to tell him. And I waited for days. And then I finally was just like, you got to do it. And I was like, hey, guess what? I got an apartment. And there was like this like visible kind of like shutdown. He was like, oh, like, congrats, good job. When are you going to get your stuff out? And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then like around that time I got injured. My knee was injured and I couldn't walk. I was like dragging my leg behind me. And he was like pressuring me to move out faster and get your shit out of my house and like just getting more and more impatient with me. There's one day where like my car was parked behind his because I bartend, right? He works in the morning, so like my car was behind his in the driveway. And he woke me up yelling at me and was like, get your car out of the fucking way, like, you know, blah, blah. And I was like hobbling, dragging my leg, and he just yelled at me the whole time. I was, and like never once was like, let me move the car for you.
Right.
Just yelled at me and yelled at me and yelled at me while I'm like crying and dragging myself through a house, up the driveway to move my car farther away so that he, you know, and I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, it's my fault somehow. But I was also like, no, he's a douche. Like,
Yeah.
like at that point I was like, nah, anyone in their right mind in this situation would offer to move my car for me. And that's not me being a weakling.
Right. Right.
I was like,
right.
I literally can't move. I can't like, I had to like pick my leg up and move it with me, you know? And so it took me like 2 weeks to get all my crap out. And also I had to sell a lot of my stuff because I was going from like a house. And before that I lived in an apartment for 7 years and I owned things.
Right.
And so I was having to sell all my things and get rid of my stuff so I could move into this little tiny space. And he kept asking like, where are you moving? Where are you moving? Where are you moving? And I was like, oh, I don't remember the address, or like, you know, like trying to find ways to not tell. And I finally one day I told him the name of the apartment complex. And I was like, I just don't remember the apartment number. And it's like a very straightforward number. Like I knew the number. But I was getting scared because he wanted to know where I was
Right.
moving. And I didn't want him to be able to find me. And I was like, this is bad. Anyway, one of my best friends came and helped me move out all my crap until like the way that I move is I move all the crap I don't care about first until I get all the way down to like the things that I care about the most, and then I move that last and I do it myself because I'm just like, stresses me out.
Right.
And like some of the things were like things that belong to my brother's fiance that died, and I just want to make sure that they're handled with care,
Safe,
you
yeah.
know. And I realize that's a control thing, but also at the same time it's like, these are the only things I have left of this person.
Right.
Or like, I don't own a lot of things in general, and so the things I do own I care about a lot.
Right.
You know, and there's certain things where I'm just like, if something happens to that, I'll be devastated, so like I'll take care of that.
Right.
And so it was the
Because you probably have trust issues, so you only trust
oh,
yourself.
massive trust
Yeah,
issues.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And also raised with like a parent who was like, there is a specific way to do everything and you have to do it this way and you have to package things this way, and if you don't do it this way it's wrong, and let me take it out of your hand and show you again since you did it wrong, that kind of
Right.
crap. I still fight that all the time, and I try not to do it to other people. But yeah, so he was supposed to be gone for the whole weekend, and it was one of his like friends getting married, and he was supposed to be gone, and he came back early, and I was sleeping, and it was the morning. I remember hearing his truck, and I was like, shit. I was like, he wasn't supposed to be back yet, and he came in and he was like yelling, and he's like, why are you still in my house? And pretty much for the next like 2.5 hours of my life, it went from me being like, please get out of my face. Like, this is my last day. All I have to do is get like the last remaining things out and I'll be out of here. And I was talking to him, I was like, just back off. This is my last day. I'll be out of here soon. Just like stop. And I didn't realize like telling him it was my last day was like the last thing I probably needed to have said. I could have been like, oh, I still have multiple days, you know? But also, like, it's not my fault because it was my last day. It's his fault because he chose to try to murder me. But I said to him, like, I have a certain number of things and my cat, and then I'll be gone. And he proceeded to start picking up those things and, like, throwing them out the door. And I was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, except it wasn't quiet. I was like, oh my God. And I was freaking out. And I was like, stop throwing my stuff. Stop breaking my stuff. He'd like, and he was saying like, I'm helping you. I'm helping you. I'm helping you move. Which is like, oh my God. I think of Animal Farm, like the like double speak in that, or like, 1984, where they're like, I'm helping you, but they're like actively keeping you from, or like,
Right.
I'm keeping your stuff safe while you're breaking it.
Right.
And I was like,
Yeah, just being a smart ass.
right, but it's also like it's gaslighting as hell. It's like, oh my God. Like, and then I was like, wait, is he helping me? Like, I literally remember thinking like, wait, am I getting this wrong? And I was like, no, my shit is getting broken,
Right.
And then because it's the stuff I care about, I'm like chasing after my stuff to like put it back together to make sure it's okay. And then at one point I remember like I closed the door and I was like, stop, like you're not throwing any more of my stuff out there. You need to stop. And he picked up something that belonged to my brother's fiance, and he was holding it out the side. He said, if you don't move, I'm going to smash this. And I remember thinking, like, I don't remember where I learned this, but like when you're doing hostage negotiations, bear with me, you're supposed to act like you don't care, right?
Right.
You're like, oh, fuck it. You want to kill him? Go for it. No, it's fine. I'm not going to, like you don't give away the fact that like you care about the thing, because then they use that against you. And I remember thinking, like, act like you don't care. Which now I'm like, no, that belonged to her. He knew that, and that's why he picked that thing in particular to threaten me with it. But I was like, fine. I was like, no, if you want to smash it, go for it. It's fine. And he called my bluff and he threw it on the ground and he tried to smash it. That, to this day, it's not broken. I literally was sitting next to it last night, like crying, because it's that time of year, and also like coming here today was scary.
Yeah.
Y'all aren't scary. I'm just scared to talk about it. But like, I don't know how it didn't break, and it should have been smashed to pieces. And it's another time where like there were a couple moments, like especially during the legal process, and given that Kate was an attorney, or would have been an attorney, we found out she passed the bar after she died. And there were times where like my grief counselor told me like, why don't you try talking to her? And at the time, this was a long time ago, I was still very like rigidly science. And I was like, she can't hear me. Why do I talk to her? That's so stupid.
Yeah.
Or like write her a letter. No, I can't write her a letter. She's not gonna read it,
Right.
And now I'm like, oh, she hears me. Absolutely.
Right.
And she does. I know she does, because there were times where I'd be like, you know what, Kate, I got nothing left if you got anything you can do to help me, like, please do it. And I remember him, it was this like, it's this beautiful hand painted stool that belonged to her that I have held on to because I only have a few things that belong to her. Um, and he threw it on the ground as hard as he could, and it should be in like, it should be little kindling firewood,
Pieces. Yeah.
Um, and when it didn't break, I remember him looking at it being like, what the fuck? Like, he also looked confused.
Mm-hmm.
And he had also like snatched my keys away from me at that point. And like, while he was distracted, like looking at this thing, being like, why didn't that break? I got my keys back from him. And that was like the back and forth that whole day. It's like, he stole my phone, he stole my keys, he tried to keep me from leaving. He took my shirt, he took my shoes. I think he thought if I was naked, I wouldn't go for help. And I was like, joke's on you, motherfucker. I don't care if people see me naked. Like, I'll go outside,
Right.
And also, like, I was an art model on purpose to deal with the fact that I was so, like, scared of my own body and scared of people seeing it that I made myself be an art model. I was like, best way to deal with the fear is to
Right.
confront it, right? And
Head
so
on.
I was like, and then I realized that like nobody hates my body. Nobody hates my body at all. I'm the one that hated my body.
Mm-hmm.
Other people
Mm-hmm.
are just grateful that they had a model to draw.
Right.
And that was its own separate healing journey. But I was like, oh, you thought that if you took my clothes, I wouldn't go outside? No, I'm going to go get help. And it was just this like, he threw me on the ground. He threw me against the door. He threw things at me. And like, prosecutors acted like it wasn't a big deal, or the investigators acted like it wasn't a big deal. Like, he threw at one point this like massive, it's like a, you ever seen one of those like hard plastic cake holders
Mm-hmm.
that's like real thick plastic, and like you can hold a big old cake or you can flip it
Yeah.
over and hold like 24 cupcakes? He threw that at my face. But like, I have really good reflexes, what with being trained for over a decade and all. So I moved, so it hit me in my leg and my toe instead. And it chunked out a piece of my toe. And they like wrote that off as not a big deal. And I was like, and I remember a judge even being like, he threw a cake at you, or he threw a cake thing at you, like a cake pan. And he was looking at me like, what? Why does that even matter? And I was like, are you, do you, sorry. I was like, do you want me to throw it at you and see how you feel about it?
Right.
Because guarantee it would hurt. You wouldn't move out of the way like I did. It would smash you in the face and you get fucking injured,
Right. Right.
And I was like, wait, am I being punished because I have really good martial arts reflexes because I took self-defense classes? Like, it was a very weird thing where I was like, hang on, because I was able to prevent it being worse than it was, like with a cake pan
Mm-hmm.
being thrown at my face, that's no longer admissible as proof that he was trying to hurt me. And that's really what it was. They're like, well, it only hit your toe. And I was like, I have a picture of that toe and the chunk missing from it. Like, that's a big deal.
That makes no sense.
No. And
Prosecutor who didn't give a shit. That's why.
oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that was very much that. But like at one point I remembered that I needed to get like my camping gear out of the basement. And he followed me, and I was like dragging my knee along because, I was injured. Uh, not just from that day at that point, but like the knee injury itself, which again, like I testified, I was like, hey, to be clear to the judges, I was like, none of this concerns a knee injury. I already had a knee injury. Please don't, like, nothing about my testimony revolves around my knee. It's every other injury I listed.
Right.
And they focus on the knee. They're like, you can't say he hurt your knee. You were already injured. And I was like, I know. I told you that. Like,
Right.
I told you that to start, so we didn't even get confused there.
Right.
I was like, I am never, like, none of this will surround me testifying about my knee.
Right.
That's an injury I've had forever. And it was bad,
And you already said
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, and just, I don't understand the legal gymnastics of all that, but they kept being like, you can't blame him for your knee. And I was like, I'm not trying to. I'm trying to point out every other thing he did, like,
Right.
or all the things he did.
Right.
None of which is my knee. But I say that. And then, like, when I was getting my camping gear out from the basement, he threw me into a wall while holding this massive, like, box of camping gear. So, like, force equals mass times acceleration. I'm a physics nerd. I'm sitting here like, you waited till I was holding a bunch of extra crap to throw me into a wall so that it hurt me extra. Like, that is maniacal. Like, that's calculated.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, and he pushed me first, and I like steadied myself. I have really good balance. Not when I'm like walking around normally, but like, in
Right.
sports and yoga. And he like pushed me, and I didn't, I guess, this is me assuming, obviously. I'm assuming what his thought was like, oh, it wasn't enough. She didn't, didn't do what I needed it to do. So he did it again. And then like with all of his might threw me into a brick wall while holding all of my camping gear. And I remember thinking, I thought my like back was going to snap because it was like a retaining wall in a basement, So it like
Yeah.
hit me like in my spine. And I just, and I remember saying to him, like, of course you waited until we're like out of sight and underground to be like the most violent you've been so far today. And I was like, get the fuck away from me. And he kept like following me and yelling in my ear and yelling in my face and just going, going, going. And I remember looking around and realizing like, because neighbors had been on their porch for the first part of it, and I watched them walk inside and like close their door, which to this day I can't get over the anger about that. And I'm also the kind of person where like I'm not, I don't know what this sounds like. I'm not great at standing up for myself, but if I see someone else getting hurt, I will go all in. I don't care what I'm risking. I don't care if it's life and limb. I will
Right.
go in to keep somebody safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I've known that about myself my whole life. Like I might not be moved to protect me, but I'll protect the hell out of anybody else around me, And I don't care if it means I die. Like I'll make sure they're
Right.
good. And I remember yelling for help, and they just went inside and closed their door. And
Didn't even call or anything. And call the
no.
police.
And then also like this man is friends with police in that area, so like I also didn't want anyone to call police because I didn't even know they would help me. I really wasn't
Right.
sure. And then I also have a long history of just like constantly, like aside from the police officer that handled my case when I reported the rape, I have never had an interaction with a police officer where I saw them acting honorably.
Right.
And like as an EMT, I was constantly like being like telling police officers to stop hurting my patients, for example. Like,
Yeah.
hey, that guy's got head trauma. Maybe don't try to break his thumb off while asking him questions.
Right.
Because you're trying to interrogate him medieval ages style or middle ages style. Like stop.
Yeah.
Let me treat my patient. You don't need to ask him how the accident went down right now. Maybe
Right.
wait till he's stable,
Yeah.
Or like stop sitting on the 16-year-old kid who is off of his meds and had been running around, and four of you beat the crap out of him. I sat down on the floor with a kid one time and talked to him about strategies for remembering to take his bipolar medication so
Yeah.
that I could help him with like visual cues to remember to take it. And these cops had just beat the shit out of this kid because his mom called it in saying he was acting.
Right.
However, and I guarantee you they didn't see that behavior. They just got a call from a mom saying, hey, my kid's being wild. And I got there and there's this kid beat up. And I
Right.
sat down next to him and I was crying because he's hurt.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's going on, buddy? And he's like, I forget to take my meds. Like when I'm doing well, I forget to take them. And I was like,
That happens so
yeah.
often.
And I was like, do you have strategies for remembering? And literally it was something like, and like I'm not saying I freaking healed him or anything, but I was like, hey, we call them workarounds, Like I have to have them. I need visual cues to remember things sometimes. If I don't put my vitamins next to my toothbrush, I forget them.
Right.
Do you brush your teeth? Yeah. Okay. Could you put your meds next to your toothbrush?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
As he's like bleeding. And it just, like my brother witnessed a robbery when he was a kid, and the cops told him he was full of shit and told him to fuck off. And we had to go to the station and sit there, and like turns out my brother was the key witness that helped him like put this guy away, and he had robbed a
Jeez.
bank and like dropped dye packs were money covered in dye packs that were exploded in front of my brother. Well, he was riding a bike. Just trying
Poor
to
kid.
just kid trying to go to the library.
Yeah.
And like I like revered my brother. I still think the world of him. Like as a little one, like my brother was like my like safe protector. And I remember knowing that like someone had told my brother like, you're lying, go away, you're annoying.
Yeah.
And it turned out literally like this man that robbed this bank had literally run into my brother on his bike, like physically run into him, knocked him off his bike, dropped dye packs everywhere, whatever. My brother was the one that helped identify him, like got the sketch drawn. He was the key witness, and they sent him a cookie arrangement to say, sorry, we told you to fuck off. And they were like cookies shaped like police dogs. And like at the time I was like, that's so cool, you got cookies. And now I'm like, that's the least they could fucking do. You literally went to them to be like, hey, I witnessed a robbery. Can I
Yeah.
please give the information? And they were like, you're a kid. You're stupid. Get away from us. you know? And like, I remember like the feeling of sitting in like a police station and my mom left me there, which is weird. She's a very hypervigilant helicopter parent, but just left me alone in a police station, which I'm like, that's not safe. It's funny that you think it is. And like, I thought my brother was getting hurt because they said he was getting like interrogated or whatever word they use.
Right.
But yeah, and then like my sister, someone tried to break in her house with a knife and she ended up chasing them down because my sister's also a badass. She's not trained in any martial art, but she just has this drive to be like, you will not mess with my stuff.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah, and she got yelled at by the cops. They told her that like she like overstepped. It reminds me of like the Uvalde mom that like ran in and saved kids and like apparently gets harassed to this day.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, she actually went in there.
She did something.
Yeah. You know? Like, and yeah, so, or like the cop that pulled me over and then sexually harassed me, like made me get out of my car in front of my friends, and then told me how beautiful I was and how much he loved my eyes, and like, yeah, and then didn't write me a ticket, just harassed the hell out of me and then sent me my way. But
so you haven't had a lot of good experiences.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, I was like, the neighbors didn't help, but also like, I wanted them just to come be present because in hindsight, I did have this understanding. I just didn't realize it that like, if people were watching, this man would behave. And I was just like, if anybody would come be present, he would stop, you know? And I was like yelling for help and trying, and like, I started off that day moving out of that house, sorry to circle back, and I was thinking like, I'm going to get all my stuff out, I'm going to move out, I'm just going to not talk to him ever again because he's clearly like, he's not the person I thought he was, I need to go. And like, that day really made me realize the only thing I care about is my cat. Because at the end of the day, I was like, if I just get this cat out of here, I say it like her name, she's incredible. She's my baby. She is my anchor. She's the reason I'm still here, you know? Like seeing her being treated badly is what actually, probably more than anything, is what made me decide to end that relationship. Because I watched the way he interacted with an animal and I was like, you're not right. Like, and it was like, I had been obviously seeing how he interacted with me, but I was willing to tolerate that. And then I watched him interact with an animal in such a disrespectful and horrible way with like no empathy. And that's what really, for me, that's what made me realize like, oh, this is a dangerous person. It was like watching how he treated a cat. And
something so innocent.
Yeah. And so I, you know, he stole my keys. I stole my keys back from him. And I remember him looking really surprised that like I was able to get my keys back. And I was like, why are you guys always surprised that I have skills, you know? Like, and obviously it wasn't that funny, but I was just like, joke's on you, motherfucker, I got my keys back. Like, I'm going to get out of here.
Right.
And it was like every time I thought I was like making a step to get away, like he would do something more and like attack again, throw me on the ground, you know, slammed me in. There was one point where I was like almost in my car and he slammed his entire body like into the car door and smashed my body with the car door. And the investigator also said that that didn't count as violence, which I 100% would love for that man. I wouldn't actually love for that man to have to go through that, but like if we put him in front of a car door and slammed a car door onto him with a probably 250-pound person doing the slamming.
Your brother had to be so pissed.
Oh my God, he was so calm in the courtroom, and I just like, and he was incredibly upset, but he was like, I got you. I'm going to handle this. He's like, just, all you got to do is answer my questions. And like, I had helped Joshua with, do I say Joshua? Sorry. Can I say his name? It's my brother.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
As long as he doesn't care.
Oh, he said he doesn't care. Yeah. He was like, no, you can say my name. I had helped Joshua with law school stuff. Like I used to sit and study with him. So I was studying science and Joshua was studying for law school and like writing his outlines. And I love property law, which everyone thinks it's funny. It's like the most unemotional part of law ever. Right. Very straightforward, very concise. Yeah. And I had been part of, it wasn't a mock trial, but it was kind of like basically like a practice, you know, whatever. And I played this like 80-year-old woman whose son got busted for something. And like I dressed up and like put powder in my hair and big glasses. And, you know, like I had a great time with it, which is funny because like of how shy I am normally. And then if I get to like dress up and be someone else, I'll just like go all out. But So Joshua was my attorney by accident. Like literally just happened to check in, and like as he was leaving that day, I was like, by the way, what do you know about order of protection hearings? And he was like, why did somebody like take one out against you? And I was like, haha, not funny, you
Yeah.
dummy. And I was like, actually no, I have one tomorrow because the guy I was dating hurt me. And he was like, excuse me? And he like walked back and like pulled the chair out, and he was like, I'm here, let's talk. And I was like, no, I haven't talked to you in a long time. Like I feel like I've been a really bad sister. I don't want to unload on you. I just didn't know if like I was like, I only had 48 hours to get an attorney, and everyone I called said no, or like the fee was too much.
Right.
I was like, so I'm gonna go in tomorrow by myself. Is that a bad idea? I was like, because I don't know. From the time I like reported it, I had 48 hours to be in court with an attorney for an emergency order of protection hearing, which like none of that is really explained to you at the
Right.
time. And I was sitting there thinking at the time, well, I know I'm telling the truth, and I know that I'm being honest, and the legal system is the justice system for a reason. So if I just show up and tell the truth, it'll be fine.
Right.
And I can't tell you how inaccurate that is. Like, and I hate that I'm saying that. But like,
It's
no.
true though.
Yeah, it's true. I'm like, don't ever, in my opinion, I would never allow myself to show up in court without an attorney ever.
Right.
Now that I have seen what I see. And Joshua was like, what time is your hearing? And he didn't even live in that city. He was just happened to be there for work. And he was like, I gotta go home. I gotta check on my son. I gotta do some things, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at court. And I was like, no. I was like, I can't let you do that. And he was like, you could have not talked to me for 30 years and I'd be there tomorrow morning. Like, don't. And like, I'm jumping around, but the thing about all of that, I told him much later, is that the night before I had been sitting in my kitchen in my little shoebox apartment, and I was sitting on the floor, and I was just kind of like, I'm screwed, like I know a little bit about law. I worked for an attorney for a while, a long time ago. When I left med school, that was my first job, was a legal assistant, solely because I typed 120 words a minute. And she liked that she could tell people I was a medical student, even though I was like, did you read the part where I quit?
Yeah.
But whatever. And I couldn't find an attorney, and I couldn't get one. And I was sitting there like, I even have a leg up over most people that would be in this situation. I know attorneys. I know how to do this. I worked for an attorney. I still can't even get one, and I have to be at court tomorrow. And I was like, I don't feel good about this, And I sat on the floor of my kitchen, and I kind of looked up at the ceiling, and I said out loud, I was like, hey, Kate, if you're there, I was like, I got nothing left. I tried really hard, and I didn't do it, And if you're around and if you can help, please help me, because I don't have help. And Joshua got me that order of protection, and he later told me that, when that hearing first started and we walked in, he had asked for like a quick chat with the opposing counsel outside. And I didn't know what that was about, but apparently he told the guy outside, like, I'm going to get this order of protection, so if you're cool with it, let's just go ahead and like make that happen now, and then we'll spare you like a whole hearing. You can go do other things. And the guy was like, oh no, like, I'm going to win this. Your client, no one knew that was my brother, your client, doesn't have a leg to stand on, because my ex had told this guy that I was lying, so he thought I was lying.
Of course he did, yeah.
And so this guy walked in there all pompous as hell, thinking like, oh, this is gonna be so easy. He left that courtroom looking so demoralized. When I say he, I mean that attorney was red in the face, like, I cannot believe how much my client lied to me, is what he looked like. I don't know, because I didn't ask him, like,
Right.
is this what you're thinking?
Right.
But like, I can read facial expressions, and he looked like he was like, oh my God, like he could not believe the shit that was said in that courtroom. And the judge wrote the order of protection, wrote an annotation in the order of protection, and he told me to my face he didn't want to grant it. He said that there was enough evidence present in the proceedings to grant it, but that he was worried about granting it because it might sacrifice my ex's ability to keep participating in the sport. And I was like, isn't that the point?
Tough
Because,
shit.
yeah, but there are women in that sport.
Yeah.
He sources his victims from women in this sport. So if the order of protection keeps him out of the sport, which like it only would if like I happened to attend the same
Right.
event,
Right.
and at that point I had taken myself out of the, I wasn't even training around
Right.
him, and I was like, what? And so he wrote like the judge wrote like handwritten notes in my order of protection, and he treated me like such like as if I was like a nuisance to him. And at one point when my brother was trying to point out to him like, hey, like we need this order of protection, like you can't ignore the information that's been presented today. And he said to me like, Your Honor, like you know the stats of DV in the state we live in, they're really bad. And cases like this sometimes don't get honored the way they need to. And like he
Right.
said this like all legally. And he was like, like we can't like, I don't remember what it was, something along the lines of like, please don't like take advantage of the fact that blah blah, he's connected to whatever. And the judge was like, well, she shouldn't take advantage of the fact that like her brother's a solicitor. And I was like, you have no fucking clue how weird it is that my brother's here today. Like he didn't even know about this 24 hours ago,
Right. Right.
And like I remember thinking like that the judge would know. And then I'm like, no, they're not omniscient. Like, how would he know that like my
Right.
brother just happened to show up in my life at the exact moment when I needed him? And then like we walked out and he was like, told you to get you that order. Like, good job, buddy. I'm proud of you. Like, you did a good job. He was like, you answered the questions the way I needed you to. Like, you did a great job. And I was like, okay. Like, all I did was answer your question. He's like, I know. He's like, but like, you did good. He's like, it's okay. Like, because I cried the entire time. And I was like, but I
Sure.
cried. And he was like, you're allowed to cry. And I was like,
Right.
no, like people won't take me seriously if I'm crying. And he was like, what? And he was like, what? But like, that's, my mom taught me that. Like when the first time I ever got in a car accident and I was crying, she told me like, if you don't stop crying, this cop won't believe you, anything coming out of your mouth. And someone had run over the front of my car and almost killed me. And she was like, stop crying. They won't take you seriously. And it's just, it's fucking wild. Because, like whenever you watch people tell their story and they're very factual, it's hard to, and I know because I've watched videos of people telling their stories where they're just emotionless. And I'm like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But that's how I delivered my information but prior to this order of protection hearing, because then it was too real. Also, they sit you in the courtroom with the person that attacked you, and I had to sit
Yeah.
right in front of him. And one of the first things they asked me was like, where do you live? What's your address? And I remember looking at the judge and I was like, with all due respect, I don't feel comfortable giving my address. He's right behind me.
Yeah.
And like, and I didn't want to look at him. And so I turned and I just like, and I asked like, am I allowed to just look at you? I don't want to look at him.
Right.
And he was like, please let it be known she's not comfortable sharing her address. And I was like, people would not know, like I'm assuming the average person would not know that they have the right to not answer that question,
Right.
or to say they're not comfortable.
Right.
And they would give their address, like when I was filling out my paperwork initially, watched a woman walk up and request paperwork. She had been beaten badly, and she said, hey, if I file this today, is he going to find out that I filed it? And they said, yeah, you'll be in court with him in 48 hours. And she started sobbing and she crumpled it up, threw it in the trash can and left. And I remember thinking like, how many people have gone in here to report and realized that like, they're going to end up right in front of the person that just put them in the situation to begin with. And, I had to sit there with him right behind me and recount all these things he had done to me and answer questions about it and cry and be uncomfortable. And he got to watch that. And it's like this sick and twisted thing where it's like, not only did they already try to kill you, which I left out the part where he threatened me with a gun. That's another part of that day. And he tried to say that he didn't know that I hated guns. And Joshua destroyed that, so that's cool. But,
Good.
like, they they make you sit in front of the person and live it again.
Or the 48 hours that while you're waiting
Yeah,
to get the protection order, they find out or either
right.
get served or
Yeah.
whatever.
So like I had
Shit.
somebody looking out for me that was keeping an eye out because I didn't know when he was going to get served papers
Hmm.
to say like, hey, you've been reported for this.
Right.
So like basically what happened for me is that like I went through all that on that day, and the way I got out of it is that at the point when like he took my shirt, took my shoes, whatever, and had already threatened me, and he was like yelling at me and threatening to kill my cat and like all this crap, and I had gotten the cat out of my house, but he had like smashed the cat carrier, so I had to like hold it together in pieces with my cat inside. And he was like using his butt, like he wouldn't put his hands on me, but he was using his body to block me
Hmm.
and like wouldn't let me leave. Like I ended up stuck in my bathroom holding my cat crying, and he was like, yeah, keep crying, you're crying because you know that you suck, you're a terrible mom, like you won't have your own human kids because you can't take care of a fucking cat, like look at you holding a broken carrier, you know, like all that, just like going and going. And I was just like, fuck it, like, and I like backed up into him, and like he moved, but I had to like push back against him, and I was like, please let him move, please let him not, like, because I had my back to him,
Hmm.
which is terrifying. And I was like, get out of my way, move. And it was freaking like over 90 degrees that day. It was so hot, and I had to figure out like, and I'm really proud of the fact that like I kept my brain together as long as I did,
Hmm.
and then afterwards like just completely tanked. But I had to figure out how to get my cat in the car, buckle her in, keep the AC running while preventing him from getting in the car. But also, if the AC was running and the key was in the car, then that meant I couldn't lock the doors. So I couldn't lock him out away from my cat, away from me. He stole my keys during the process. He stole my phone. And I had like taken all the keys off. Like at that point, I had started like taking my one car key off so that I could like, and I was like holding it in my hand. And I
Hmm.
was like, because he had already like crushed my hand once to get my keys away from me. And I remember like crying, like I was like, oh my God, like it was insane pain. And that's how he got my keys from me once. So I was like, I'm gonna take my one key this time, like one of the times I got my keys back, and just hold it in my hand. And like if he crushes my hand, I'm not gonna let go. I'm gonna hold on to it. And I was like ready to like have every bone in my hand broken, but I was like, my cat's in that car. So
Hmm.
like I'm like, you can break my hand, but I'm not letting you have this key.
Right.
But also like I had to work so quickly at that point because it was hot, the air was on, the car was unlocked, and I stole his phone. I was like, you steal my phone, I'll steal your phone. So like I took his phone and I went outside, and I was about to call the cops, and I was like, I can't do it, they're not gonna help me. And I stood like, and that fucking sucks. But I stood there and I was like, I could call the cops right now. And then I thought about the story that he told me of a past girlfriend, where he had told me the version of the story was that she beat him up and he got her arrested. And he was like, whenever the cops got there, they initially arrested me, but then they finally saw the light and realized that she was the aggressor, and they arrested her instead. And like that day when that was happening, I was about to call the cops, and
That's all you were thinking.
I was like, I now realize that that story was told incorrectly to me. She probably really did call the cops.
Hmm.
He's friends with them. He's friends with like the head of the sheriff's department. He's friends with so many law enforcement. They all think he's amazing. I was like, probably he got her arrested after he attacked her.
You probably lied.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I remember seeing her one time, and like he pointed her out to me, and she looked terrified. We were all at the same restaurant, and she would not look at him. She would not turn around. And that was another time, and I was like, something's not right, you know?
Hmm.
And yeah, so like I had his phone, and I was like getting ready to call the cops, and I was just like, and I dialed it so many times, and then I kept hanging. I was like, nope. And I didn't call them because I didn't trust that they would help me.
Right.
And because I realized like I'm going to go to jail if I call the cops, and I'm literally the one fighting for my life today.
Hmm.
And he is such a good manipulator that he's going to get me arrested. And what's going to happen to my cat? That's literally, I was
Right.
like, and then
Yeah.
she's gonna get killed. Because that's what he was saying.
Of course. He
And
definitely would have followed through with that, I'm sure.
yeah, oh my God, he hated that cat. It just, ugh, awful, awful. To this day, she doesn't trust people. And like, it's like my friend group is like a kind of like, they joke like, oh, like she only likes you. But I'm like, she went through some shit when I first got her, you
Right.
know? And like, and I feel guilty about that, even though it's not my fault.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so, the way that, and I almost called like one of my friends that I know that he wouldn't fight. And I almost called him, and then I also stopped myself. And I realized, like, in hindsight, I should have known then that, like, I really didn't trust that guy either. But he was the person that I called afterwards to go back with me to get my stuff because my ex was like, I love you. I'm sorry. I've left the home. If you want to go get your things, you can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he said, like, I'm sorry for what it's worth. Losing you wasn't something I was prepared for. And at the time, I was like, what? And now I'm like, no, we talked about it for like weeks, you asshole. Like, you
Right.
knew I was
Right.
leaving. You were
Just more
prepared. Yeah.
manipulation.
Yeah. But at a point when I was very close to being like, I got nothing left. I don't know what to do. How do I get out of here? How
Right.
do I get my shit back from him? Because he had my phone and my keys. And I was like, I had my cat and my car key. And I was like, I need the keys to my apartment because I'm going to go drive to this apartment and sit in the parking lot.
Right.
And a neighbor that lived across the street from us that I had like actively avoided talking to. And I didn't know why. And now I'm like, oh, because I would have been accused of sleeping with him. But he drove by at the point when I was like in the driveway trying to figure out what to do. And I ran in front of his car. And I, like no shirt, no shoes. And I was
Right.
like, please help me. And there's a little guy. He's a small guy.
Mm.
And he got, like, to his credit, no hesitation, got out. And he was like, what's going on? What can I do to help? And I was like, I don't remember what I said to him. And he was like, where is he? And I was like, he's inside. And he was like, where's your cat? And I was like, she's buckled up in my front seat. I just need to get out of here. But like, he has my phone and he has my keys. And he was like, do you have a key to your car? And I was like, yeah, it's in my hand. He's like, do you have your cat? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, then you have everything you need. He was like, we're going to get you out of here. And like, now that I think about it, I'm like, that's the guy that must have seen some shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you're going to get out of here. He said, you have the key in your hand. You're going to take the key. You're going to go get in your car and you're going to lock your doors. You're going to make sure your cat's okay and then you're going to drive away. And he gave me like step by step. You will do this and then this and then this. And he said, stand here for just a second. He said, is it okay if I hold your hand? And I said, okay. And he like put my hands together like this and he put his hands outside my hands and he said, I am praying for you to have strength.
Mm.
And like, I was not raised in the Christian faith, but like that day, that prayer was so helpful and so everything. And
Yeah.
also like I now know that when someone's going through, when they're triggered like that, you do have to say like, first this, then
Mm-hmm.
this, and then
Mm-hmm.
this. And it's another time when I'm just like, who was this man? You know? And also I lived across the street from him for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him for help and he gave me help. Like, that's amazing, you know?
Right.
Because my bar is so low.
Yeah.
But he, my ex walked out and he was like, hey, you have her phone and her keys, please give them back to her. And he like took the phone out. He's like, oh, this phone? He's like, no, this is mine. And I was like, he's lying, that's my phone. And he's like, give her phone back. And he's this little guy. And I was like, and I know he doesn't train because I know everybody that trains, like.
Yeah.
And so he got me my phone back and he was like, get out of here. And he stood there and waited while I got in my car and then told me to leave. And I was thinking like, I'm leaving you with him. Like I felt like I was putting him in danger.
Yeah.
And he was like, go. And he
Not
was like,
knowing what he'll do.
he was like, when you get to your apartment complex, go to the leasing office, tell them that you don't have keys, but you need to get inside. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that,
Yeah.
And then like I left and I called one of my best friends and I was like telling her like what had just happened, and I was freaking out. She's like, are you driving right now? And I was like, yeah. She's like, pull over. Like, she's like, get far away from the house and then pull over and just like sit for a second. And she was like, we're gonna help you, like, we got you, it's okay. And she was like, don't go back for your stuff, you don't need to do that, like, we'll help you get it, it's fine. She's like, but just get to your apartment. She's like, does he know where your apartment is? And I was like, he knows the name, he doesn't know which one's mine. She's like, that's fine. She said, park your car somewhere else, go inside, and take your cat inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. And I also, like, this part, like, still blows my mind. Like, when I got to the apartment complex, I remember I was like, I think I was looking for my knife or something, I don't know what, but I opened the glove compartment and he had put my keys in there. So, like, that whole time I was like waiting, trying to get my keys from him, and he had like stashed them in my car, I guess. And I remember thinking, like, I thought I was keeping such a careful eye on my cat, so, like, when were you around her and I didn't see it, you know?
Right.
And, like, what did you do to her?
Oh.
But yeah, I got inside, and, like, she went and sat in the sink, and she doesn't usually sit in the sink. She just curled up, and I was like, she had, like, put her little paw in my hand because I was petting her, and she put her paw in my hand and, like, put her head on it and laid down. And I remember thinking, like, wow, she's not okay. And then I was like, I don't think I'm okay. And then I sat there until, like, my arm fell asleep, and I looked down at my shoes, and they were, like, covered in mud because I'd walked to the basement, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, like, I have to get my shoes clean. And I sat and scrubbed my shoes for like 5 hours. And like, for whatever reason, like, that part of my experience was like helpful for the investigator. So they, like, when I reported it, they told me that they thought it was weird that I waited a year, but it was like the day, like, a year to the day. And I was so incredibly just, like, unable to do my life that day because everything was coming back. And I have videos from that day. Like, I was able to record some of what happened, which got used against me in court. They said, oh, since you didn't record everything, you can't prove it happened. You can only prove what's on your video. And I was like, what? Excuse me? And, like, somehow that's admissible? I don't understand that
crazy.
part. But that was, like, part of their
You
defense.
just never
apparently.
know with
Yeah,
each different
so
court. They're all
strange.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like, oh no, like, you've got part of this recorded, but because you didn't record everything, that means that the part that you didn't record didn't happen. And I was like,
yeah, I didn't exactly have my phone out
right. I was like, well, he took my phone.
videoing
That's
while
the
getting
thing, is,
thrown
like,
against the wall.
yeah,
Or,
yeah. So, like, he
it doesn't even
realized
make
I was recording him, which was the first time he took my phone. And after that, like, because I was trying to hold it, like, nonchalantly while I was defending myself, but like,
Right.
you know, like, you hold a phone a certain way and you can tell someone's recording. And I'm very aware of, like, what I look like when I'm doing things. So I was holding it like it wasn't doing anything. So I've got, like, recordings, like, his feet, his shorts, his face, whatever, you know, like, whatever I
Right.
could record. But yeah, it's just like, they I remember I went and sat in front of the investigator and tried, like, I sobbed the night before, but I was like, I'm doing this, I'm calling
Right.
it in. And I called it in, and I was like, I need to report a domestic violence incident. And, like, I had to meet with a police officer, and, like, all the pictures of, like, the bruises I had from it included, like, a picture of my butt because there were bruises from, like, God knows which part of that day, but, like, it, like, went down the side of my body.
Yeah.
And so, and this police officer, like, made, like, a weird face because he had, like, look at a picture of, like, my back and, like, one of my butt cheeks. And I was like, can you be a professional?
Right.
Like, Jesus, what are you, okay. And he was like, so, which part of your butt, was this your left side? And I was like, it's a butt, it's fine. Also, like, you're
Like,
not
calm
looking
down.
at this for
Yeah.
a sexual reason. That's a fucking injury from getting beaten. Like,
Right.
could you keep it together, you know?
Right.
Like, and my friend afterward was like, was he struggling to look at that picture because it was your butt? And I was like, I think so. Like, and also, like, that's so weird.
Right.
Like,
It is.
and yeah, so whatever. And he was like, I just, you know, it's a selfie in a mirror, so I can't tell if this is your right side or your left side. And I was like, breathe. Oh my God.
You could figure it out, buddy.
It's my left side, you know?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Did they arrest him?
Not for, like, months. They dragged it out. The investigator kept calling me and asking me questions. And when I, like, went and sat in front of him to, like, because I gave the police report, and they said, okay, this has to go to investigator because you waited. They kept saying the phrase, you waited a whole year to report, like as if that's weird or something, and it's not. And so they said, well, it has to go to investigator. We can't just go arrest him. And they made a point to tell me, if you had called us the day it happened, he would have been arrested on the spot. And in my head, I'm like, you say that like it's guaranteed. It's not.
Right.
You know? And so they kept calling me. Like, I would go to work. I had to be at work at 3, and bless the people I worked with because they were so patient with me. And I'd be like, hey, I'm supposed to be setting up the restaurant right now. I was working in fine dining, and it's very structured and it beautifully structured, but like each person has to play their part leading up to the restaurant opening. And if you don't, somebody's got to carry your weight, you know?
Right.
And I know that's true in any workplace, but it was like we had a small crew, and they would cover for me. I'd get a call from an investigator, and I would be like terrified, like I got to go answer this phone call, and I would have to go outside and talk to them. Also leading into like schmoozing people and smiling at them and making them feel happy for my job.
Right.
So he would call and ask me questions about like the information I'd give him when I sat down and like gave him this information about the entire day. And he told me that they needed me to take a polygraph. And I remember thinking like, that seems weird, but like, I'll ask Joshua if he needs to be there for that or not. And if not, like, okay. And like, I told him like, you know, I'll ask my attorney, and he was like, okay, you know, like if he wants to be present, he can. Long story short, it's not a thing that is done. I learned people don't usually polygraph the victim in a domestic violence case. You know, there's like this little tiny part of me that was like, I have always been scientifically fascinated by polygraphs. I really want to see how they work. Right. And then also, and that was like 1%. The other part of me was like absolutely terrified. And I was like, I don't want to do this. But also like, I know I'm telling the truth. So like that part's fine.
Right.
I just like, I don't want to go be in a room with a man I don't know, you know?
Right.
And my brother, my attorney, was supposed to be able to be there. But also like, he didn't live in that city. He was driving back and forth to come help me, you know?
Right.
And the investigator had also like downloaded the photos and the videos I had on my phone, and I'd like sign a release for it, and he like plugged the phone into his computer, and I remember him being like, don't worry, I won't look at anything else on here, I'm just looking for the evidence. And I was like, I remember being like, you're just gonna see pictures of like my plants and my cat and my food that I cook. And I was like, what do you think's gonna be on there? And I forgot that like, if it was any given person's phone, there might be like some cute racy selfies or something.
Right.
And I was like, there's literally my plants, my cat, the food I cook, and then videos of me being attacked.
Right.
And photos of my injuries.
Right.
Because I documented them. And I was like, why are you saying that? And he was like, don't worry, I won't look. And I was like, well, look at what? Plants? A cat? You know, like I didn't get it. I was like, okay. And he was like scrolling, and he was like, there's a lot of plants on here. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so they interrogated me for 3.5 hours. Literally.
Wow.
And they had a student from the martial arts school where I was teaching, and they brought him in and told me that he was shadowing the investigator and that he was going to be part of that. And I remember thinking in my head, like, I'm not okay with that.
Right.
But I didn't want to look like I was being difficult, so I didn't say anything. And so a, like, new student in the school where I was teaching was allowed to sit in the other room and watch me be interrogated, and for 3.5 hours, like the investigator and the student. I say student, it's a full-grown man, but he was my student. And I got locked in this little ass room with this very large, and I felt scared of this man. And I was sitting in this chair, and he kept talking about how he was going to like hook up all the sensors and whatever. But I remember thinking like, when do you get to the part where like the polygraph starts? And then in hindsight, I realized that like it was going the entire time. Like I think that they were like evaluating me from the chair, which like I never got a chance to ask anybody about that, so I don't really know.
Yeah.
But like I remember seeing him looking at a screen and being like, somehow he's already evaluating me. I don't know how. And he asked me like, all these questions about my life and about, have you ever done this, have you ever done that? And I was just like, I'm going to answer honestly, because what do I have to lose? And if
Right.
you're going to arrest me for saying I, did that, then if you arrested domestic violence victim because she said she, smoked weed in
Right.
college, then
Right.
you're a piece of shit. So I was
Right.
like, I'll just be honest. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do care. I care immensely, but I was like, I want to make sure that, like, if this is what you need from me, if you need me to do a polygraph to get this fucker arrested, fine, I'll do a polygraph. Like, whatever,
Right.
you know? And I didn't know this, but the ex had hired a private, they call them polygraphers. The attorney had hired a private one. They had refused to do the one for the police department. They refused. They wouldn't do it, never to this day. But hired a private person to do it and paid for a private polygraph. And they said, "Oh no, he passed with flying colors." And like I've since learned, like that's not even a phrase that's used. You don't pass a polygraph,
Right.
apparently. Uh, and I was also told like they could have asked him like, "Hey, is the sky blue?" And he said yes, and they'd be like, "Hey, he passed his polygraph." Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no guarantee that he even was asked about that day.
Right.
And he went around telling everyone that I failed my polygraph. I didn't. It was the day that I finished that polygraph that they went and finally gave the information to a judge to get a warrant for his arrest.
Good.
And they had already dropped the charges down to like DV third degree, even though it qualified. They told me it qualified as first degree. And by the time it finally got to a judge and the judge issued a warrant, and I gave the information to my brother, who's my attorney still, and he said, "I'm just gonna let you know, buddy, they dropped it to third degree already." And I was like, I don't know what that means. Is that higher or lower? Because I'm thinking of chemistry terms.
Right.
Primary, secondary, tertiary. I'm
Right.
like, I don't know. Like what? And he
Right.
was like, they've dropped it down. They dropped the charges down already. And I was like,
But they were arresting him.
yeah. But I was like, at least they're arresting him. Like
Right.
that's what I told myself. I was like, at least he's finally getting arrested.
Right.
And I had to represent myself at the hearing again. And it's not his fault, but like, Joshua had a case in the city that he lives in. He
Mm-hmm.
can't just cancel it and be like, sorry, I got to go,
Right.
I got to go up there. And so he sent me all the information I needed to like speak at the bail hearing. And it was terrifying. I couldn't tell you what the information was at all. And I, like my brain that can see text messages, I
Mm-hmm.
remembered as much as I could remember, and I remember it blanking out. Like I don't know if that makes sense, like photographic
Yeah.
memories. And I got to the like, and as I'm talking to this judge, and it was a woman judge, and she was also treating me like I was just annoying. And oh, sorry, yeah. Also, when he was arrested, the police called me while I was at work because they weren't sure that they were at the right house. That happened. And this was a new job at the time. I had just started working there, and the person who is now one of my best friends was my bar manager, and my phone was dying. I was serving a, this is wild. It was for a magazine, like a print magazine featuring our restaurant, and it was a full 6-course fine dining meal orchestrated with like full settings, like clearing each thing, serving wine pairings with everything. It was in this like gorgeously decorated farm thing that had been set out with a string quartet, right? Like if that impresses, and like, and I was new and I didn't know everybody, and
You
and
get that phone
and I
call.
got a phone call in between courses, and I usually don't answer numbers I don't know, but I answered it, and they were like, "Hey, so we came here to arrest him, but the truck that's in the driveway, we ran the tags and it doesn't match the name of the person." And I was like, "What? You're calling me because?" And they're like, "Well, we just wanted to find out what address we're supposed to be at." And I was like, "I'm an insert because I was out of state for
Mm-hmm.
this magazine publication, and I'd volunteered for it, and it was part of my new job." And I was like, and I'm over there, and they're like, "Hey, we gotta go. We gotta serve the next course. Like, come on, you're part of this carefully choreographed event." And I was like, "What address are you at?" And they told me, and I was like, "That is the address." And they're like, "Well, but why is the truck not?" And I was like, "Why are you, law enforcement, asking me why the truck in the driveway doesn't match? Also, like, what is the name showing up?" And they said the name, and I was like, "Ha." That's his family member. He's been saying this whole time that he pays for that person's stuff. Turns out that person pays for his stuff. So the truck was registered to that person because that person pays for his shit. And I was like, that's his family member. That's his truck. You were at the right address. Can I go now? And they said, yeah. Like, we'll call you back, let you know if we get him. And I was like, something like that. And they're like, and if we do, you have to be at court tomorrow morning. And I was like, I'm out of the state. And long story short, I had to put my brother's phone number into my new boss's phone because my phone was dying and I had to call my attorney to let him know that they were finally, and I was like, hey, so you know how you just hired me?
Yeah.
I'm a domestic violence survivor. Surprise. And the cops just called me and here's why. And also in addition, can I borrow your phone? Because mine's dying, but I have to be able to, and I was like, this is fucking nuts. Like, oh my God. So like that's how my boss found out that and then like the flip side of that, the silver lining is that they actually knew my ex and they were like, oh, he's awful. And it was the first time I met anyone that didn't like him.
Right.
And it turns out he had been a complete horrible human to multiple people that worked in the service industry with me. He had never been
Mm.
awful to people in like the other bubble I existed in. But in that bubble, because he looks down on industry people, he had been his true self. And I got the most support from them after that. So
Oh,
like there was that, but like the way it happened was awful. And I was
right.
also like, did I really just have to help law enforcement do their jobs? It's so weird. Don't you have like, I don't know, ways of researching that, you know?
Yeah.
Could you not figure out the connection there? Um, but yeah. So anyway, uh, they arrested him. I had to show up at his bond hearing. He was standing there in his jumpsuit looking like he was very unhappy with me and it was terrifying. I couldn't look at him. And the judge was so impatient with me. She was so rude. And I was like trying to remember what I was trying to say. And the whole time I'm talking, I'm like, why am I even at this microphone? I didn't think I had to talk. I thought I just had to sit here. And she was like, what terms are you seeking? Blah. And I was like, I didn't think I had to say any of this, you know? And then the attorney got up there and he was like, she can't be trusted. She's a liar. I have the full. Oh, also, my cell phone had deleted all the texts from him. Like they were set to delete after a year. So like I had
Mm.
them and then whenever I went to go give them to the investigator, they were gone and he thought I was lying to him. And I was like, they're in my brain. I could draw you a picture. Like I could literally tell you what they said.
Right.
And I was like, what the hell? And like a forensics person came in and she was like, oh, well, your messages are set to delete after a year. And I was like, oh my God. Cause I keep everything forever.
Right.
And I was like, I've never changed that setting. What the hell? And so I was sitting here saying, like, he texted me. He admitted he did this in a text message. He apologized. He said, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. Like,
Hmm.
losing you was not, and he was like, well, if you had that text, it'd be really helpful. And I was like, I'm telling you, you sent it. I was like, can you get it somehow? And he's like, that's not really how that works. And I was like, what? But then the attorney at the hearing was like, well, I have a full transcript of their text messages. And I was like, well, then it's there. And like, he quoted something from like farther down in the conversation. And I was like, if you have that, then you have the thing where he said he did
I'm
it.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tried to bring that up so many times and everyone kept acting like I was like it wasn't relevant. And I was like, oh my God, okay. But at one point after all that had happened to me, someone in the gym had seen some of my injuries and I didn't want to say what happened. So I pulled the whole like, oh, I got in a fight, you know, like you should see the other guy,
Hmm.
which was like very dark humor on my part because like they were seeing the other guy every day, you
Right.
know? And
Right.
I was just like, I don't want to deal with this. But I was like, I was all taped up. Like my my chiropractor has been taking care of me for like a very, very long time. She's like basically like mom status in my life and she calls me on my shit and she's amazing.
Yeah.
And she almost cried like putting me back together and she documented it and she had given medical documentation saying like, hey, these are the injuries I saw that day. And you know, this guy was like, oh, she can't be trusted, you know. Shortly after she said this happened, she was in a fight. And I was like, no, I wasn't. I was like, I said that because I didn't want to tell anyone that he attacked me.
Hmm.
But like that got thrown in my face a bunch, like, oh no, you just go fight people. And I was like, I actually literally don't. Like I use
Right.
my words probably too much. Like I wish I would unleash, but I don't, you
Right.
know?
Right.
uh so yeah, it basically got dragged out in the legal system for almost 2 years. And it got to the point where like it switched to a different solicitor. Like, I started out with one solicitor. They mailed all my shit to the wrong address. Like, I missed a court date and they thought I was just this like delinquent victim who wouldn't show up to court, and then found out that they weren't even mailing it to the address I lived at. And I was like, could you please send my mail to me? I check my mail every single day, twice a day.
Right.
And I was like, I've been waiting for that letter. And she's like, well, you didn't show up. And I was like, I didn't know I was supposed to. And she was like, I looked in the chart, or in the chart. I'm medical. I looked in the record and realized that no one had ever called the victim. So that's why I'm calling you. And she was like, I'm calling you to tell you that you have like one more chance before we drop your case. And I was like, what do you mean one more chance? I've been waiting to hear from you guys. I was told to shut up and wait.
Right.
You know? And she's like, well, you haven't answered any of your summons. And I was like, I don't have a summons. And she pulled up the address. She's like, do you not live at this address? And I was like, no. In fact, I do not. And like, why can't y'all get this right?
Right.
And then she was like, well, you could have been in counseling. And I was like, I am in counseling. She's like, what? And I was like, yeah, your investigator told me about the people I could go to for counseling, and I went. And she was like, oh, well, I didn't know that. And I was
So
like,
they're not communicating.
no. And I was like, oh my God. Like, so anyway, switched to another solicitor. He called me, told me it was very straightforward, for sure was going to go to trial. All he needed was for me to promise I would show up. He kept talking about how victims never show up to court and how annoying it is. And I was like, oh no, you mean victims don't want to show up to a courtroom and sit in front of their abusers and have to give their whole story and be vulnerable to the world after someone took all of their autonomy away from them? How annoying are we? We're the worst. I was like, y'all are so, like, the way you speak about us sucks,
Yeah.
There's no empathy. And the opposing counsel apparently did whatever legal gymnastics they do and kept getting the trial continued. And so after it had been continued 3 times, and like each time I would get like ready to go, and like my life would fall apart in every way possible. Like, I was still showing up to work, doing my job, making money, and I would also sit on my couch for hours at a time and I couldn't move. And I was just like shaking and crying. And that's what people don't see, And I'm looking at my cat like, hey, I was extremely suicidal during this process because I didn't want to deal with it. And I thought for sure, I was like, there's no good solution. Like, I report it. It makes him mad. He tries to kill me again. I report it. It makes him mad, but he goes to jail. When he gets out, he comes and tries to kill me again. Like, there's no way or I say nothing. He knows I'll keep quiet. He'll come try to kill me again. Like, there's no good answer,
Yeah.
And then I've got these people being like, I don't understand why you wouldn't speak up. Why didn't you speak up right away? Why'd you wait so long? Why'd you wait? I'm just like, okay.
It's always so easy for another person to put their 2 cents in and what they would do.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, also separately, I pay for all of my own shit. I'm completely independent. I have to pay my bills, which means I have to go to work. And my job involves being really happy in front of people.
Right.
Like 40 hours a week, in a way that like my tips depend on it.
Yeah.
In a structure that is like structured and beautiful, and like you need, like, fine dining is really hard.
Right.
And I keep doing things where I'm like, martial arts is rigorous as hell. Fine dining is rigorous as hell. Like, all these things have a common thread. But like, I was like, I would fall apart when no one would see me. And I would sit there being like, I can't go anywhere because my cat only likes me,
Yeah.
And I had gotten her little brother because she wasn't doing great. And so I was looking at him, and I was looking at his little orange boy, and I was like, he's so well adjusted. He loves everybody. I was like, somebody would take care of Ollie, it would be fine. I was like, but Marzi would be fucked because she doesn't feel safe with anyone except for me. So like, I have to stay here.
Aww.
And that was the chat I had with myself, like, every day.
Over and over.
For over a year and a half, I was like, if I'm not here, Marzi doesn't have a home. So I gotta stay.
Well, good thing she didn't like anybody.
I know, right? She really doesn't.
Yes.
And like, my best friend that helped me rescue her, she hates her. And I was like, that is your fairy godmother. Be nice to her. But I got a call one day right before I was supposed to go to work, after, getting ready for a trial 3 times over the span of like however many months, because like they'll continue it and they'll set it for like months down the road.
Right.
And so like I kept listening to these podcasts about like Anne Boleyn and like all the women that got beheaded or killed, and there's all the parts where like they're in the Tower of London waiting, and I didn't intentionally pick those podcasts at that point in time, but they gave me this like perspective I would have never had otherwise. And like, I think people think that when they were in the tower, that was like the least difficult part. And now I know like that's the hardest part. When you're just sitting there waiting for someone to pass judgment on you, that is the biggest form of torture I could imagine. And that was what made me want to not be alive, was waiting for someone else to have this extreme control over my life again.
Right.
You know? And I would wait and wait and wait and wait, and I'd be like, please let this be over. And I remember hearing in one of those podcasts that I think it was Anne Boleyn had said something about how Henry was merciful for giving her the death sentence. And a lot of scholars kind of contemplate, like, why would she say, like, thank you for being merciful? And I remember thinking to myself, like, because she had an answer. And at that point, it was like, having an answer, no matter what it was better than waiting for one.
The unknown.
Yeah.
Oof.
And so I got a call. And you know, it went from, like, hearing from the solicitor, telling him, you know, him being like, just promise you'll be in court, just promise you'll be in court. Like, and they would always say, it's so rare for a victim to agree to speak in court. Usually people don't do what you're doing, as if like I was untrustworthy or something because I was willing to like stand trial. And I wanted to be like, hey, my entire world is falling apart because I'm promising to do this, but like, I do what I say I'm going to do. So if I say I'll be there, I'll be there.
Right.
If it destroys me, I'll be there. If it's what I have to do to get justice, I'll be there. And I got a call. He wouldn't even call me himself, the solicitor. I got a call from like an assistant in the office. And she said, hey, just calling to let you know we're dropping your case. We're not going to keep going on with it. Like, said it very quickly. So like, if you have any questions, feel free to call us back. But you know, we're not going to. And I was like, hang on, can you repeat that, please? And I like sat down on the floor of my apartment and I was like, please say that again slower. And I had to make her say it like 3 times. And I was like, I'm sorry, you're not gonna. I was like, will there be a trial? And she's like, no, we're not gonna continue with your case. And I was like, but why? And she's like, well, if you have questions, you can call us back. And hung up. And I had questions, so I called back. And I called back for I don't know how many times, and no one ever answered, and no one ever called me back. And I called my brother. I think he was like in court, and I called another woman who was basically like, she is Kate's best friend, and she to this day is like a sister to me because we've stayed in touch ever since I met her through Kate, and she's so special to me. And I called her, and she was like, I'm about to get on a plane, but like I have 5 minutes and they are yours. Like, I'm gonna wait and I'll be the last person getting on this plane. And I was like, I think that they dropped my case, but they promised me there'd be a trial. So like, I think he might be free, and I don't know what to do. I think I have to go to work, but like, I don't know what to do. And I got to work, and she was like, if you need to pay your bills, get dressed and go to work and tell your boss as soon as you get there. And I did. And I was like, hey, I have to work because I need the money. But like, for the next hour and a half, is it okay if I cry? I was like, I might not look happy setting up the bar right now, but like, I'll get it together for service, you know? And I did. I worked an entire shift, and I smiled at people, and I took care of them. And I was like, I failed.
Wasn't you that failed, though.
But it was like this, like it reinforced that I'm not good enough story, which sucks because it's not true. And I have since found out how common this story is.
Oh, yeah.
The case getting dismissed.
The system failed you.
Yeah, but
Like,
they blamed me. They actually literally blamed me. They said, you waited too long to report it. You talked about your knee. And I was like, why are you fuckers obsessed with my knee? Like, I thought I did a good job of like making sure y'all knew. And they're like, well, you know, like, there's a different explanation for why your knee was hurt, so your whole testimony doesn't fly. And I was like, none of this concerns my knee. Like, they kept bringing it up.
and
for
for them to drag it out that long and have
Yeah.
you do a polygraph.
Yeah. And And also, like, that polygraph, I ended up, like, I think that is the most helpless I had felt since he tried to kill me. I was sitting there and I was crying and I was looking at the ceiling and I was like, I think I remember saying out loud, like, someone please come help me. Because I wanted out of that room so bad, but I was like, if I have to keep going, so you'll arrest him, I'll keep going. And
Ugh, that had to be the worst feeling.
yeah, like, why would you lock me in a room with a man I don't know and interrogate me? Like, that's insane. And he kept saying, we don't usually interrogate victims. And I was like, well, I don't know why you're doing it now, but okay, you know? And then I'm like, I think probably my ex was trying to tell them that I had attacked him. I guess. I don't know.
Who knows with
Right?
that?
But
Because
he's like, we don't usually polygraph victims. And I was like, okay, I heard you the first 5 times you said
yeah.
it. You're doing it now. So,
Well,
like,
he probably just tried to manipulate the whole situation like he always
right.
did with anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just, like, I kept being like he kept saying, the polygrapher kept saying it. And I was like, I heard you already. Like, I heard you. Yeah, you don't usually do this to victims. I don't know why I get to do it, but, like,
Right.
we're here now, so let's go, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like, I still don't know. I'm like, was that supposed to elicit some kind of response? I have no clue. But I was like, okay,
Ugh, it's just
I
the
heard
thought
you.
of like him even knowing like
Yeah,
that it got dropped. Like there's
yeah.
no
And
justice
so,
whatsoever.
no. And, like, the end result of all of it is I left that sport. I no one, like, told me you have to leave, but they all said the, like, well, we weren't there, we didn't see it happen, so we don't really know if you're telling the truth. And they, like, kept him away from me as long as I had that order of protection. But once the case got dropped, I couldn't renew the order without him doing something else. So, like, he would have had to have, like, attacked me again, and
Right.
then I had to start. Oh, and that is one thing they said before they hung up the phone, like, if he attacks you again, let us know. And I was
I'll
like,
make sure to do that because it did me
yeah,
a lot
because
of
it went
freaking
so well
good.
the first time,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, I would never report it in the future, ever. Like, I'll figure out how to be the Green Arrow before I report it, you know? Like, I will go and learn 8 languages and get locked in a, whatever, and find a really cool suit with an underground workout gym. Sorry. But, like, those are the
Gotta
links
find
I'll
some
go
kind of
to
humor,
to
something in it.
avoid to
Yeah.
avoid ever dealing with you ever again. I would never do this again because I barely survived the initial event that caused the police report, and I barely survived the legal process, you know?
Yeah.
And it fucked up my life in so many ways. And, like, I got diagnosed with PTSD like two some odd number of years ago. I don't remember. And the day I got the diagnosis, I was like, no, I don't want it. And they were like, what? And I was like, I wish you would have asked me if I wanted it. I didn't want to know. You can put it in my chart, but don't tell me.
Right.
And my counselor was like, I'm so sorry. Like, she's like, I screwed that up. I'm so sorry. She's like, I should have asked you if you wanted to know what you were diagnosed with. She's like, I just didn't. She's like, I'm sorry. And she's like, but can we talk about why you don't want to know? And I was like, because it's one more effect he has on me still, Like, every time there's a loud noise and I jump out of my skin, or somebody walks behind me and I think I'm about to get attacked, or I can't even apparently listen to the sound of silverware clinking together or glass breaking. Like, it all, and I have so many more triggers than that,
Right.
And I've learned so much about how to manage triggers. And I am like, I think somebody would look at me objectively and say, you're doing really well with this. I look at me and I'm like, this is a mess. I'm so mad
Yeah.
that it's even a thing,
I think you're being really hard on yourself though, because meeting you like when you first came in and you having the strength to come and tell your story to share with others, like you win. You win. Look at
Thank
you
you.
now.
But even sharing it, it's so scary, you know?
But the
Like,
fact that you can share it for other people that have there's so many people out there that have went through exactly what you're going through.
thank you.
And that's huge.
It's
That's a
just,
really big deal to be able to say it out loud and to tell it like that.
I guess so. I'm still on that line of, like, I'm not that special, so, like, I feel like anyone could do
Well, you
this.
are. You are. And you should never feel that way because even you telling the story now is going to help so many people.
I hope so, you
Think
know?
about how many other women out there, or men, some men can feel that way too,
Yeah.
that feel exactly how you have felt.
Yeah. You know, I
And
found
you're
out.
strong. I think you're way stronger than you give yourself credit
Thank
for,
you. I
for
found
sure.
out this week that the case was taken out of the system. So it just like doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And I texted my brother and I was like, hey, is that a thing? Because when it came down to it,
Would
the
he get it
thing that
expunged or
I think
something?
so. Yeah, I can't find it anywhere. I was looking because, you know, I was like, I need to look at all the things and have all the stuff to come talk about it, which wasn't necessary, but I couldn't find it. And it sucks to know that someone can erase my life experience like that.
What you went through
And
and
then also like part of why I reported it was because I know enough about domestic violence to know that like if he's not literally withheld from women, he's going to do it again.
right.
So like there will be more victims, which makes me sick to my stomach.
He had zero accountability for any of it.
Yeah, so like now, and I don't have the answer to this, but like if someone else speaks up and they go and file and they happen to be in the same county, because that's necessary too, are they gonna look at it like it's fresh? Like that's the only person who's ever attacked?
Right.
You know?
Right.
Are they gonna hopefully have some divine intervention where they're like, oh, you should talk to this person? Like, and then if that's the case that like if someone else reports him and there's no record of it, like if there's no internal record and I don't
Mhm.
know, then like I'm really struggling this week with like what's the point?
Right. Well, let's just hope because his ass got arrested and had to face the music a little bit at least. Maybe he's just an arrogant asshole and just a complete psychopath. And but he did see that there could be a consequence because
Yeah.
of you.
And then he also saw that he got away with it, you know? And it's just like,
Yeah, but there's a
shit.
lot of things with that. Like, hopefully, in his head, he thinks, well, it's because she reported a year later or what, something,
Yeah.
like if I did this to
Yeah.
someone now and they reported it,
Right.
I'm in deep shit.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's like at the end of the day, it's like what I said earlier is like, I don't have that really strong drive to keep me safe. But
Yeah.
it's why I wanted to teach women how to protect themselves because I want people to have what they need to feel empowered to be
Mm-hmm.
safe. And I also will go to whatever lengths, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so the thing that made me go and show up in front of the investigator and the thing that made me press the button to call the police finally was like, it was like a tiny bit for me. And it was mostly because I was like, this is important because if I'm remotely thinking that I might be able to go through with reporting this, I can help keep other people safe.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a motivator for me. Like that's what I found, that's what I dug for, that's what I
Right.
landed on. And so,
Super disappointing though in
yeah.
the legal system. They really
And
let
then
you
like how
down
much does that happen, you
a
know?
lot.
Like a lot. And how would we have any way of, cuz I'm a scientist at heart, how do we have any way of quantitatively evaluating that? That whole 1 in 4 stat might be even worse, and that's
Right.
already freaking terrible, you
Right.
know?
That's just the stuff that's reported,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the woman who balled up the thing and ran away from the courtroom,
Mm-hmm.
she's not counted,
Right.
you know?
Right.
He didn't there was
So
no
that was probably not the
conviction.
last time that happened to her. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. She was terrified to have
Mm-hmm.
him know that she was trying to get help.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. I'm so glad you came and you had that strength. Be
Thank
proud of
you.
yourself.
Thank you so much.
Just even the fact that you went, you did it. You did everything that you were supposed to do and then some.
I tried really hard.
Yeah. And it's just really unfortunate that sometimes a lot of times with the legal system, it ends up not going our way, even if we have all the facts. And that
Yeah,
really does suck.
it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And it totally shatters my childhood concept of justice.
Right. The adult reality, right?
Yeah, you know? And it also makes me understand why, like, having an outlet, like, I joke about the Green Arrow, but, like, Batman, Superman, all these things, like,
Right.
why would that be something that we're drawn to,
Right.
if not because we're missing it
Right.
in our lives? And that's sad. That definitely needs to be addressed. I have no idea how,
Yeah.
because I tried. But also, thank you for having me here, because aside from when I recorded my story for the fundraising event,
Mm-hmm.
I never really got to share it. And I
Yeah.
worry sometimes about sharing too much every day because I don't want to, like, affect people around me with
Right.
it.
Right. Right.
But I figure people coming here
Right.
are okay with
But if they
hearing.
love you and they're your people, they're going to listen and they're going to
Yeah.
be there for you. And if they don't, fuck them.
Fuck.
Right? You don't want them in your life anyway. That's just taking
Agree.
up time.
Yes.
Well,
Thank you for doing this. Thank you for
thank
having
you for
me.
being so brave. I'm proud of you.
Thank you so
That
much.
had to be tough. It's a lot of story.
It's a lot. Thank you for listening to all of it and
Yes,
all
of
the memory
course.
cards.